Hey, everyone. Thanks for joining us. It's going to be a great night, even better than the debate.
It should be fun, yeah. The debate is starting in, 10 minutes? But we just want to come on early and say what's up to everybody. So we're watching the debate tonight. My father, the 2024 second presidential debate. We are watching. We will have fun with you all. Hello, Bob, Minnesota. How are you? Hello, Kim. Hello, President Nieto, one of our many presidents. Elemental Bot says hi to you, Dad.
All right. I remember him.
Any pre-debate thoughts? Any pre-debate comments you want to make, Dad?
Yeah. Of course, the big issue here is not who's debating, but who's not debating.
Who's that?
Who's not?
Who?
Who? You know who?
Trump.
The big kahuna. The 6'3", 215 pounds, svelte, looks like Lamar Jackson, Donald Trump.
Right.
Is not here. This is really unusual for the front runner to scram out of the debate. So what's Trump doing instead? He's going to show his support for the United Auto Workers and their strike and their picketing. And you know how he's doing that? By making a speech at a non-union factory. Only in the world of Donald Trump does that make any sense whatsoever.
Is that true?
That's true.
Oh,
He's already been denounced by the head of the union for doing that.
What is the strategy behind that? I don't even get that.
As I said, it only makes sense for Donald Trump. He lives in a bizarro world. He still thinks he won the election.
Luke Wilson is watching.
2020. All right.
Say hello to Luke Wilson.
Luke. He thinks, he thought for months and months COVID would just disappear, or if you just injected bleach, you could solve COVID. So it's hardly surprising that this guy should be supporting the union by giving a talk at a non-union factory. The idea of Donald Trump being a pro-union guy is about as plausible as saying, I am the heavyweight champion of the world.
You're not?
Well, used to be. When I was twice as big.
So thank you all for the donations so far. We're not going to be monitoring the chat as closely tonight because we're going to have to watch the debate. So it's going to be hard to read the chat and watch the debate. I'll try to do both, but just keep that in mind. But Shades guy, he donated $5. He said, of these 2028 Dem ticket, West, Fetterman, Williamson, Sanders, Whitmer, AOC, who would most likely get the charisma key?
AOC.
Yeah.
She is charismatic, whether you like her policies or not. She came out of nowhere, backbencher, as a Democratic representative, and she's almost become the face of the Democratic Party. I'm not predicting she becomes a Democratic nominee, but she is charismatic.
No doubt about that. She is very charismatic.
I want to say, another thing.
Say it.
Since this is a debate of the also-rans, we just had big news yesterday, right? The judge in the New York civil case brought by the New York State Attorney General claiming that Donald Trump has run his business as a fraud, granted her summary judgment, deciding indeed she's right. Donald Trump has committed massive fraud over many years. My favorite one is he lives in an apartment. This is his own apartment. It's not something he doesn't know about. That's 11 square feet, and he claimed it's over 30,000 square feet, overvaluing it, by about $200 million, or overvaluing Mar-a-Lago by over $500 million because Mar-a-Lago is only licensed as a club. You can't sell it as private condos or homes. So the judge has said, you're liable, and he's already proceeding to dissolve Trump's businesses in the state of New York. Of course, Trump is appealing, so we don't know if this will hold, but I think it will. The evidence is just overwhelming. You can't say your apartment is 30,000 square feet when we know it's 11,000 square feet.
And you know what? It won't affect his poll numbers at all.
Well, we'll see.
No. You always say that.
We'll
you
see.
always say every time something happens to Trump, you go, we'll see. If it's never happened, what's going to make a difference this time?
Well, at some point, there's the old saying, the straw that breaks the camel's back. I don't think this is it.
This is not it.
But I do think the straw that might break the Trump back would be a conviction in the January 6th case brought by the Department of Justice. And that case is coming down. It's coming down early next year.
Okay, I believe the debate's starting in 5 minutes. We got another super chat from Iori Imperial. They say, was Al Gore right to concede the election when he did, or did he have any legal means to continue the challenge the Supreme Court ruling?
After the Supreme Court ruling and after the controversy in Florida, Al Gore made a very gracious concession speech. Al Gore was consistent with the great American tradition that every losing presidential candidate has followed, and that is to facilitate the peaceful transfer of power and to concede when your legal options are over. I was watching the grilling of my old friend Merrick Garland by Jim Jordan, and he kept saying, is challenging an election illegal? No, it's not, if you follow the law and challenge it through the courts. It is illegal if you commit illegal acts like setting up false electors or pressuring the vice president to violate the Constitution. That's different.
Did you just call Jim Jordan your old friend?
No, I called Merrick Garland my old
Merrick
friend.
Garland. Sorry,
Yeah.
I was reading the chat and I was like, wait, I don't think you know Jim Jordan.
But Jim Jordan and I were both college wrestlers, but he was a little bit more successful than I was.
You were a college wrestler?
For about 2 months.
I don't think that
D3.
counts. I don't think that counts. I don't think you can say you're a
At
college.
129 pounds.
Jordan Marchev wants to know who gerrymanders more and why.
Well, both parties gerrymander, no doubt about that. But overwhelmingly, the Republicans have done much more gerrymandering and are much more brazen about it. They probably have netted 20 plus seats in the Congress just through gerrymandering and have controlled state legislatures. The worst gerrymander in state legislatures is Wisconsin, where Democrats win the majority of votes and Republicans still control 2/3 of the legislative seats in Wisconsin. That is now up before the Wisconsin Supreme Court, which now has a 4-3 liberal majority because of the new justice who won by 10 points. It was a landslide statewide, and now Republicans are so desperate to hold on to power, they're threatening to impeach her, even though they have absolutely no grounds to do so under the Wisconsin Constitution.
Have you ever voted for a Republican, Dad?
I don't reveal my votes.
Okay. Thank you for the donation to Alex Shim. They said, will 2024 be the 40th election year since 1860 as part of your 13 keys to the White House? 40th POTUS was Ronald Reagan for your first prediction.
My first prediction was 1984, which I made in 1982 in April, when we were in the worst recession since the Great Depression, and Ronald Reagan's poll numbers were underground. So it was a very hard call. Retrospectively, you're right, the keys go back to 1860. It's very important in listening to predictors to be wary of retrodictions, that is, going back to elections where you know the answer, as opposed to advance predictions. Unfortunately, a lot of predictors fudge that.
You like fudge?
Yeah, I kind of do. But
all right, I am going to transition to the debate. Let me know if you guys like this format. We'll be in the bottom here. The debate will be on top.
Keep the donations coming. That keeps us alive.
He likes the donations, guys.
I do. We're a shoestring operation.
Hello, Matt Sheridan. They say, hey, guys, I never get a chance to see you live. This is great. Well, thanks for finally joining us live, Matt. We appreciate that.
Good to have you.
We've got 1 minute left until the second GOP debate.
And we'll be with you the whole time.
Once we start, guys, let me know if the audio levels are okay, if we sound good compared to them. Just keep me updated on what sounds good, what doesn't sound good. Let me turn on the audio for this real quick and see what it sounds like. They got music? That is strange music they got. Okay, we'll wait till they actually come on rather than whatever weird music they have right now. Who do you think is going to win this debate, Dad? You said last time that Nikki Haley. Who's Alex?
I think Nikki Haley will win the debate. I don't think it'll matter.
Right.
The last debate didn't move the needle at all. And
it did a little bit.
Inconsequentially.
Right. Inconsequentially, right. I agree. Weird music they got going. Cat Lady just said, I just purchased your book. Thank you, Cat Lady.
Thank you.
What do you think about cat ladies, Dad?
Love it.
Oh, here we go. Okay, hold on, folks.
As a monument to one of the most beloved leaders in our nation's history, Ronald Reagan, the Gipper, the great communicator, America's 40th commander-in-chief. He railed against big government.
The 9 most terrifying words in the English language are...
Here comes the Reagan Love Fest, right?
Yeah.
And sought peace through strength.
Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall.
Tear down.
40 years after Reagan's landslide
Can you
re-election,
hear?
He was standing up to the Russians.
Right.
He'd be,
What does it mean to be
turning over his grave if he saw the way today's Republicans are appeasing the Russians.
Wow, good point, Dad.
The left and the media going to worry about what the left and the media say about us.
What is the key to a thriving economy?
It's innovation, not regulation.
America could do for anyone what she's done for me.
We will stop the spending. We will stop the borrowing. We will stop the earmarks.
What is America's role in the world?
We need to build.
Yeah, Republicans have fallen in love with the deficit now that Biden is president. When Trump was president, they just rubber stamped trillions of dollars in deficits.
Good point.
Even more challenges. Would Reagan even recognize the country in which we now live? Tonight, candidates seeking the Republican nomination converge in California.
How does the audio sound, guys? Let me know.
Grand old party. Now is the time for choosing.
Time for choosing, except they're not going to choose any of these folks.
Right.
I'm also curious to see if anyone's going to really take on Trump besides Christie and Nikki Haley.
Right.
California. We're inside the spectacular Air Force One pavilion where the stage is set for a showdown. I'm Stuart Varney of Fox Business, and I am thrilled to be sitting alongside my co-moderators, Fox News Channel Dana Perino and Ilya Calderon, Univision.
Good evening.
That was great.
Thank you.
Univision.
President Reagan famously described America as a shining city on a hill. And tonight, 7 candidates will make the case they should be the one to lead that city into a brighter tomorrow. But first, they have to convince you, the voter. Please allow me to welcome our Spanish-speaking audience. Muy buenas noches a todos. Desde la Biblioteca Presidencial Ronald Reagan, los precandidatos republicanos también buscan su voto para las primarias del partido. Bienvenidos.
And good evening. So let's meet the candidates who have qualified and chosen to be on this stage tonight. They are positioned by the order they rank in the polls, with the highest polling candidate in the middle. Standing center stage, Florida Governor Ron DeSantis.
Flanking the governor, entrepreneur Vivek Ramaswamy, and former South Carolina Governor Nikki Haley.
Next is South Carolina Senator Tim Scott and former New Jersey Governor Christie.
On the wings tonight, former Vice President Mike Pence.
God, how far Mike Pence has fallen.
Right.
He's among the also-rans.
Right.
Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Questions on a wide variety of issues important to primary voters. Candidates get 1 minute to answer and 30 seconds to respond if singled out. When their time runs out, we'll all hear this.
Yeah, they all hear that and they don't listen.
To cover,
right.
So please keep it civilized.
Let's get going. We are in this spacious, sunny place tonight, designed to reflect the very nature and character of Ronald Reagan. It's a place that makes you proud to be an American. Yet today our nation is drowning in division and incivility.
Voters say
Drowning.
they dread the 2024 election and find politics exhausting. 2 in 3 Americans think the country is on the wrong track. And 3 in 4 say the economy is not in good shape.
Prices are up 18% since 2020. More than half of the U.S. population has little access to childcare. 85% of Americans say their personal finances are a source of stress.
Americans want to believe a leader who says, "You can follow me. I've got you. Don't worry." President Biden is trying to do that with Bidenomics.
And yesterday, he joined the picket lines where auto workers are demanding more wages and job security. Senator Scott, you recently reacted.
Are they going to show Trump in the non-union factory?
Probably
not.
Probably not.
Controllers in the 1980s saying, "You strike, you're fired." Would you fire thousands of striking auto workers today, Senator?
Obviously, the President of the United States cannot fire anybody in the private sector. However, we should look back at the first bill in Congress under Joe Biden. The first bill had $86 billion for the union pensions because they continue to overpromise yet underdeliver. One of the challenges that we have in the current negotiations is that they want 4-day French work weeks, but more money.
Oh, the
They
French.
want more
Never trust the
benefits.
French.
Working
Anything the
No,
French are
of
doing.
course not.
That
Yeah,
is
never trust the
simply
French.
Not going to stand. I sat in a finance committee hearing when a widow came before the committee who was promised pensions from the unions, $4,000 a month. Unfortunately, it had been cut to $1,000 a month. We must make sure that we honor the commitments that we make, and one of the ways that we do that, do not overpromise and then underdeliver.
Empty.
The taxpayers
Right.
on
Hasn't
the hook.
given
I'll
us a
say
solution
this,
to anything.
Joe Biden should not be on the picket line. He should be on the southern border working to close.
The
it's
border.
the border.
You knew, even
You
though
knew
they're
it.
talking about
Bring it back to
Detroit,
the border.
Michigan, they're going to go to the border.
Go back to the
right?
border.
Back to the border.
1,000 Americans in the last 12 months because of fentanyl. It is devastating. Every county in America is now a border county because fentanyl has devastated Americans in every single state. I will also say 6 million.
I mean, there's no
illegal
doubt that
crossings.
fentanyl is a problem, right? But
But it doesn't come across the border.
right. And that wasn't the question either.
And this has nothing to do with the question. Because he had nothing to say about the question.
Right.
And get the job done.
Get the job done.
Whatever the job may be. We don't know because he didn't say anything.
On the border and immigration, but in the meantime, we do want to talk about the economy.
Yeah, that'd be
and
nice
and
not to talk
especially
about
want to talk about
immigration
this
no matter
strike for
what
just a
they
moment
ask
more.
you.
Right,
Mr.
right.
Ramaswamy, you've said you really empathize with the strikers. You're standing next to Senator Scott. And do you agree with what he said, or do you think he's wrong?
I agree with some of what he said, for sure. I like the spirit of it. I'll say that I don't have a lot of patience for the union bosses. I think that's where he and I actually have a common view.
Oh,
I do
union
have a lot of
bosses, that's a
sympathy
good
for
one.
The workers,
Right.
however.
They're thugs.
People are going
Yeah.
through real hardship in this country. I've been through hardship growing up. My father stared down layoffs at GE under Jack Welch's tenure at the GE plant in Evendale, Ohio. My mom had to work overtime in
Who
nursing
cares?
homes
Tell
in
us
Southwest
what you're going to
Ohio
do for the
make ends
American
meet
people.
and
Don't
pay off
whine.
our home loan. So I understand that hardship is not a choice. But victimhood is a choice, and we choose to be victorious in the United States of America. You know what, if I was giving advice to those workers, I would say go picket in front of the White House in Washington, D.C.
Oh, that's going to do them a lot of
What?
good.
That makes no sense.
None.
Why do people like this guy? He makes no goddamn
None.
sense.
Pick at the White House? What is that going to do for them?
Nothing.
Nothing. Zero. White House doesn't employ them.
To deliver economic growth in this country, unlock American energy, drill, frack, burn coal, embrace nuclear
And destroy the
energy,
planet.
put
Got it.
people back to work by no longer paying them more money to stay at home, stabilize the U.S. dollar itself, and rescind a majority of those unconstitutional federal regulations that are hampering our economy. That is how we unleash American
Which regulations
exceptionalism.
are those?
And that's not a Democratic vision or a Republican vision. That is an American vision that we embrace economic growth, and capitalism is still the best system known to man to lift us up from poverty, and we should not apologize for it. That's what it means to be an American.
So his answer for the workers is to picket the White House.
Yes.
And Tim Scott had no answer for
Right.
workers.
So
He just
far,
wanted to talk about the border.
Right. So far, horrible answers.
Non-answers.
336 times the number of rank and file workers. That's just part of a wider income inequality trend in the country. The richest 1% now controls 1/5.
Alex
of all
Treefire
income.
says that you're making
Vice
this
President
more
Pence,
entertaining. So congrats.
last week
All
you
right,
said
I'm trying
you
because this is
sided
so
with
boring.
This is
American
bad so
workers.
far. This is boring.
But you also
Not that it needs to be
support
exciting,
how these
but-
companies operate. Which is it?
Well, thank you for the question. I want to thank Univision and Fox Business for assembling such a wonderful forum.
He's always
Look, I
so
do disagree with
sincere,
something
isn't
Tim
he,
Scott
Mike
just said.
Pence?
Joe Biden
Thank
doesn't
you
belong
all.
on a picket
There's
line.
nothing
He
wrong with
belongs
that.
on
There's
the
Nothing
front
wrong
line.
with that, but it's, that and a buck will get you on the
Look,
subway.
I'm from the second leading
Yeah.
manufacturing state in the country per capita. I was governor of the state of Indiana. We brought 12,000 factories back to America during our administration. I know something about manufacturing. And I got to tell you, while the union bosses are talking about
union bosses! Beware!
I have to tell you, I really believe what's driving that is Bidenomics has failed. Wages are not keeping up with inflation. Auto workers and all American workers are feeling it, and families are struggling in this economy. And Joe Biden's Green New Deal agenda is good for Beijing and bad for Detroit.
Oh,
We ought to
Beijing.
repeal the
Bring in
Green New
China.
Deal, get rid of the mandates and subsidies that are
Do they ever
driving
come with real
American
substantive
gasoline,
stuff, or are they just all
automotive
fear-mongering? The
manufacturing?
I'm
border,
waiting.
China,
I'm waiting
union
for an
bosses,
answer. China,
beware.
the border,
Yeah.
yes.
The United States. I'll be standing with
Bidenomics.
workers all across America, and I'll be standing for the right to work of every American
What
to
does that
join
mean?
a union or not
Nothing.
join a union as they decide.
I mean, okay, that was something at least.
Something, although who knows what it means. Right to work is a very fraught concept.
Right, there's not. Alex Treefire just mentioned there is no Green New Deal. It doesn't
Of course
exist.
not.
It doesn't even exist.
Doesn't
America
exist.
can do for anyone
you know,
what she's done for
it's
me.
it's like
It's
the
why we're
union
focusing
bosses.
on restoring hope,
Something to rail
creating
about.
Well, union
opportunities,
bosses
and
exist at
protecting
least.
the
Yeah, but
America
the issue is
we
not the
all
union
love.
bosses. The
Growing
issue
up
is the
in a
workers.
single-parent
Right,
household,
right.
I wondered if the American dream would work for a kid in the inner city. I've got good news for every
Who cares
single
about
child,
this stuff?
Whether
Give
you're
us
in the inner cities of
solutions.
Chicago or the rural parts of Iowa, America and the dream, it is alive.
No
it
one
is
cares
well,
about
and
your
it is
dreams.
healthy.
We want your
God
answers.
bless these United States of America.
Oh, but he said, "God bless America."
Oh, okay.
So fine.
That's good.
I think
Good
we
answer.
need to look
Yeah.
at exactly what happened. Biden showed up on that picket line, but why are those workers actually there? It's because of all of the spending that he has pushed through in the economy that's raised
They're
the
on-
inflation. So when you
they're
look at the
picketing
fact
because of
that
Biden's
we are paying
spending?
higher gas prices,
That's a new
higher
one.
grocery prices, $7,000
she's making a
more
fine
year
point.
for
I mean,
families.
inflation is
What we
higher,
need to
gas
do is
prices
I
are
came out with
higher.
an economic plan. Eliminate the gas and diesel tax so that they have more money in their pocket. Let's focus on going after middle America and cutting taxes for middle America and collapsing those brackets. Let's get rid of unfair distortions like the state and local tax that they give to wealthy people in blue states and paid by red states. And let's make sure we make the small business taxes permanent. They only made those temporary. They made the corporate
giveaways that aren't
taxes
in red
permanent.
states?
Let's
Never heard of
focus
that.
on what it
Never
takes
heard
to
of
get
that.
more cash
In
in
fact,
the
blue
pockets of workers.
states tax
That's
the
when
rich
we'll be
more
able to
than
deal
the
with
red
strikes
states.
like
That
this,
is
not
true.
sitting
Texas
on a
doesn't even
picket
have an
line
income
like
tax.
Joe Biden.
That is true.
Thank you, Governor Haley. We have other questions to get to about economy. Allow me to.
Hey, what happened to
I'm
DeSantis?
sorry.
Allow me to.
Yeah,
allow
I
me
don't
to-
know.
I'm sorry, I have to jump in because we're missing the point, and every other network
Oh,
is
you
missing
gotta
the
jump
point.
in,
The
Bergman.
reason why people are
All right,
striking
here's
in
a quiz
Detroit
for all
is
our
because Joe
listeners.
Okay.
Biden's
Who is this guy?
interference with
Well, his
capital
name's on the
markets
screen.
and
Oh,
with free
okay.
markets.
North
The
Dakota
subsidies,
governor.
we're
How many knew
subsidizing
that?
The automakers, and
Did
we're
you know that?
subsidizing
I
the
said
cars,
Bergman.
and
Yeah.
a particular kind of car, not every car. We're subsidizing electric vehicles. And when
I
you
don't know how he
decide
got
that
in
we're
the
going to
debate.
take
He's
all of your
polling like
taxpayer
1%.
monies, take $1 billion,
This is a big thing a lot of
subsidize
Republicans are
certain type
doing.
of
They're blaming it
vehicle,
on
and the batteries
electric
come from
vehicles.
China.
Right.
China
Right.
controls 85%
Which
of
is
the rare
the
earth
highest
minerals. They're
selling,
called rare earth
the
minerals.
highest
They're
vehicles
measured
in the
parts per
nation.
million.
It's
Right.
actually
China is moving
completely
100,000
spurring our
And if we
economy.
don't do it, guess
in
what?
Indonesia,
The
in
foreign
Africa, they're
competitors
literally
Yeah.
destroying the
are going to
planet
outsell
so
us.
that they can make a battery that's in a car subsidized here. That's why they're striking, because they need 2/3 less workers to build an electric car. Joe Biden, this strike is at Joe Biden's feet.
Told you they wouldn't listen to the bell, would they?
So he had to get his, you know, he's not going to get any time, so he has to push himself in.
The government will shut down
Not gonna do him
if
any good.
Congress does not reach a deal by the end of this week. Vice President Pence warns that politics of, quote, Trump's populist proteges, like Mr. Ramaswamy, are a road to ruin for the GOP.
I'm having
if the
trouble
government shuts
understanding. What is she
down,
asking?
should voters blame populist Republicans?
Voters should blame everybody who's in Washington, D.C. They get sent down there to do the job, and they've been failing at doing the job for a very long time. And let's be honest about this with the voters. You know, during the Trump administration, they added $7 trillion.
There we go.
$7 trillion in national debt. And now the Biden administration has put another $5 trillion on and counting. They have failed, and they're in the spot they're in now because none of them are willing to tell the truth. None of them are willing to take on the difficult issues. They just want to keep kicking the can down the road. And the inflation that Nikki spoke about is absolutely right, and it's caused by
Agreed, but
government
what's your
spending.
answer to the deficit?
And that's why people all across this country are suffering tonight. And yet we don't get any answers because Joe Biden hides
What is your answer?
in his basement.
What are you going to do about the deficit?
As to why he's raising the debt the way he's done. And Donald Trump hides behind the walls of his golf clubs and won't show up here to answer questions like all the rest of us are up here to answer.
The only one who really
The
takes
only
to
one who
Trump,
takes
yeah.
on Trump.
Yeah.
Questions for the people you talk about who
See,
are
the
suffering.
problem is,
And if
though,
the
the
government-
Trump
and if the government
loyalists
closes
are so baked in, they're impervious to everything. Doesn't matter.
Right.
They're not going to listen to him.
Right.
and just plays to the grandstand.
And frankly, he didn't give us any answers to the deficit. Just railed about it.
Here's how we get it done in Washington. We must find a
Can we please
Oh, let's talk over each other now so no one can understand what you're
you haven't
saying.
spoken, please.
The people in Washington are shutting down the American dream with their reckless behavior. They borrowed, they printed, they spent, and now you're paying more for everything. They are the reason for that. They have shut down our national sovereignty by allowing our border to be wide open.
the border.
So
Right.
please
That's
spare
responsible
me,
for the debt.
crocodile
Right.
tears for these people. They need to change what's going on. And where's Joe Biden? He's completely missing in action from leadership. And you know who else is missing in action? Donald Trump is missing in action.
Oh!
Tonight. He owes it to you to defend his record where they added $7.8 trillion to the debt. That set the stage for the inflation that we have now. I can tell you this, as governor of Florida, we cut taxes, we ran surpluses, we've paid down over 25% of our state debt, and I vetoed wasteful spending when it came to my desk. And as your president, when they send me a bloating spending bill that's going to cause your prices to go up, I'm going to take out this veto pen and I'm going to send it right back to them.
Ilya, you mentioned me in the question. I just want to...
Well, he went after Biden.
He did.
Wow.
Good for him.
Impressive.
A lot of moms and dads
Briefly,
and Americans,
anyway.
and I
Yeah.
know that
Just
you've been
quickly.
thinking about it because child care costs, they are up. They're topping $10,000 per month. Some families are spending up to half of their income on child care. And they're having to decide, is it worth it for me to work or does it not make sense for me financially? In 3 days, the billions of dollars in pandemic-era funding is going to end, and 70,000 daycares could close. So you had an effort to broaden eligibility for child care assistance. That fell apart last year. And for the moms and dads out there who are worried,
Gee, he advocated
what
for
can
more
you tell
spending.
them if you weren't
Right.
able to get it through the Congress? How could you do it as president?
Here's the
Certainly
thing.
one of
Everybody
the things
hates
I did
spending,
as a
except if
member
it's
of
spending
Congress
on
was
them.
to make sure
Right.
that we protected.
Think I'm gonna
the
give up my
Head
Social
Start
Security
programs
and my
around the country,
Medicare?
giving
No.
people the
Not a
opportunity
chance.
to pick and choose the place that they send their children. The challenges that we see today under the Biden administration is that the cost for daycare has gone over 15.
Going after Biden isn't going to help them. We know you all hate Biden. It doesn't matter.
Fair.
Broker plan. He called it a Build Back Better plan.
It's not the
It was
general
going
election.
Up to
You got to distinguish yourself
$29,000
from Trump.
Right.
problem is to make sure that we actually cut taxes and give more Americans their money back. When I helped write the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, we actually lowered a single mother's taxes by 70% on the federal level. For dual income households by 60%. Then we went a step further. We doubled the child tax credit and made it refundable. By doing that, more parents had more resources to make the decisions how to take care of their
He just told you they can't afford child care. None of that did any good.
their money. When that happens, the greatest opportunities rise from the ashes.
Okay,
I need
I'm
to
gonna
jump
give you
in
15
here.
seconds.
They're in
Go
the
ahead, and
ashes.
then
That's
we're
what
going
they
to the border.
Ilya
question had told you.
mischaracterized a part of my view. I think this artificial division is unhelpful in our party. The real divide is not between the Republicans on this stage. And in the Reagan Library, I want to say these are good people on this stage. The real divide is between the majority of us in this country who love the United States of America and share our founding ideals. Free speech, meritocracy, the idea you get ahead in this country. Not in the
Shut up, dude. This guy is such a blowhard.
He's a blowhard. He's saying nothing.
Jeez.
That has a chokehold over that party. That's the real divide. Right. So this populist versus classical debate.
As I said, you can attack Biden to the end of the day, and it does you no good.
Yeah.
Because there's no difference among them on that. They all hate Biden.
We're going to go on. You have to. We have all these questions. We're going to get to you. We're going to come back to you. There's a lot of time.
So have we heard a concrete answer to anything yet?
We knew that the cliff was coming. We knew that there was going to be millions of people without it. And so guess what? We planned.
Okay.
When we passed legislation because child care.
We will get you some questions, but you're going to have to let us move on. We are going to the border next.
Child care is workforce infrastructure.
I haven't been given.
You got to give him credit. He's trying at least, right?
He's trying. He's trying to get out of that 1%, but it won't do him any good.
Yeah.
Right after this debate, everyone's going to forget who he was.
Right.
Those who have put down roots and who have lived here, even though some time back they may have entered illegally.
2 years later,
I don't think a Reagan has emerged yet from this crew.
No, I don't think so. I don't think so at all.
or Republican president has done
was the first
since.
one to predict Reagan's re-election in 1984.
Allan Lichtman.
Correct.
You supported a path to citizenship. But when you ran for president in 2016, you flipped, saying immigrants should be tracked like FedEx packages. Where do you stand now on a path to citizenship for 11 million of undocumented immigrants?
Well, the problem is that since no one has done anything since we first had this discussion 13 years ago, we're not in a position to be able to do any of that anymore. What we have to do now is first treat this like the law enforcement problem it is. Our laws are being broken every day at the southern border, every day. And Joe Biden and his crew is doing nothing about enforcing that law. They are letting it go.
They're going to keep going after him.
I know, but it does them no good.
Yeah.
They don't know that, but it does them no good.
A president.
We get it. All of you hate Biden. We'll stipulate to that.
Right.
First and foremost.
Doesn't distinguish you.
What I'll do on day one is sign an executive order to send the National Guard to partner with Customs and Border Patrol to make sure that we stop the flow of fentanyl over the border, but also to make sure that we send a much different message. We want you here in this country to fill the 6 million vacant jobs we have, but only if you come here to follow the law and only if you come here legally. If you come here illegally, we will apprehend you and we will send you back across the border from which you came. And the fact is that until we set a law and order agenda in this country, not only now but in the future, we won't be able to continue this.
Send them all back. You shut down the hospitality industry, the agricultural industry, and the construction industry.
Across the whole border, he built 52 miles of wall and said Mexico would pay for it. Guess what? I think if Mexico knew that he was only going to build 52 miles, they might have paid for the 52 miles.
Thank you, Governor.
All right, Governor Haley. Most illegal immigrants are coming from countries south of the border. You've seen the Fox News drone. It's captured this steady stream of people coming into the country on a daily basis. In fact, I believe we have a live picture of it tonight. That is happening right now, live. In the last decade, the U.S. has spent nearly $55 billion.
Look at that. People are getting on a bus. That's so scary.
Yeah.
Crime, poverty,
really
and
scary
corruption,
looking
they persist,
people, too.
and the number of migrants is only growing. Are we wasting our money?
Well, what happens is when Joe Biden waved the green flag,
Joe Biden.
it told everybody to come. And now we've
he
seen 6
opened the
million
border,
people
so everyone
cross the border. We've had more
America.
fentanyl that have killed Americans in the Iraq, Vietnam, or Afghanistan.
As if no one came during the
wars.
Trump administration, right?
We need to make sure that we are a country of laws. The second we stop being a country of laws, we give up everything this country was founded on.
Tell that to Donald Trump
so we
about
have
being
to
a country
secure the
of
border.
laws.
The way we
91
do that is, first
felony
of all,
counts.
defund sanctuary cities. You see what's happening in Philadelphia right now. It's got to stop. We need to make sure we put 25,000 more Border Patrol and ICE agents on the ground and let them do their job. I spent 400 miles down that border, and I'm telling you, Border Patrol agents aren't allowed to do their job. Let's go back to remain in Mexico policy. Instead of catch and release, let's go to catch and deport.
What about
and
what about the aid that federal taxpayers are paying to deal with the root causes? It's not working.
The
Or is
only
it?
aid that we should be spending right now is to secure the border, the southern border, the northern border, period.
You would cut
we
off
need
aid
to
to the
keep
beach.
Problem with the
Americans
northern
safe,
border.
and right
You
now
heard that?
Americans are not safe.
No.
Only
Those damn
when we
Canadians
fix the
like the
immigration
French.
system, only when we get the border.
I think we should stop so many Canadians. Think
Absolutely,
about it.
yeah.
Justin Bieber, Canadian, kick him out.
Kick them out, right? All those hockey players,
All those-
we don't need
throw
them.
him out. Seth Rogen, Canadian, kick him out.
Kick them out.
I'll
Very
make it
good,
clear,
Nikki.
we have to change
Secure
the process
that northern
in
border.
They're trying to make it sound like there's some terrorist threat or something coming from
Yeah.
the northern border.
delivered a budget on time 4 times in 40 years.
Hey, here's
if
a
they don't
quiz
keep the
for you.
government open, they should not.
Talking to the mic.
How many migrants coming across the southern border have committed acts of terrorism?
None?
None. How many Native Americans have committed acts of terrorism?
Like Indians, you mean?
No.
Oh.
Those born here, I don't mean
Oh.
indigenous peoples.
A lot more.
Dozens and dozens
Right.
and dozens.
Right.
Now include arms sales and training exercises. Are you comfortable with China deepening ties with our southern neighbors?
Of course not. And the reason why we're in this mess
There's
is
a
because
tough
elites
question.
in D.C. for far too
You
long
hate China.
have
Of
chosen
course we do.
surrender over strength when it comes to the CCP. Some people in our country got rich, our industrial base got hollowed out, and they have been able to build the second most powerful military in the entire world. We need a totally new approach to China. We are going to
What
have
approach
real
is
hard
that?
power in the Indo-Pacific, like Reagan, to deter their ambitions. We're going to have economic independence from China, where we're decoupling
How?
our economy, and we are going to go after the cultural power they have in this country. As governor of Florida, I banned the CCP from buying land in our state. We should do that all across these United States.
Oh,
We shouldn't
that's
have them
the
in our
policy.
universities. We should.
One of the
Okay.
few we've
Yeah,
heard.
a real policy. Okay.
There's a real policy.
Yeah.
Of course, the national government can't do that.
Right, right.
It has to be done by each individual state, but why not?
So as your president, I am not going to let that happen. I'm going to reverse this country's decline. We are going to choose strength, not surrender when it comes to the CCP.
America is not a country in decline. Under Joe Biden, we are a
So
country.
who are we afraid of now?
China,
the
immigrants,
migrants, immigrants,
Union
the union
bosses.
bosses, Joe Biden.
Joe Biden.
Yep, the Green New Deal.
Right.
Legal premise, will you expel U.S. citizens?
So the first thing I want to say is I agree with everything. The Republicans on the stage are on the right side of this issue. Militarize the southern border, stop funding sanctuary cities, and end foreign aid to
Oh, there's
Mexico.
another one, sanctuary cities.
Right, right.
Yeah.
But
Not
I do
that there
go a
are
step
any,
further.
but
You're
it's
right
all right.
about that, Ilya. I favor ending birthright citizenship.
Oh, God.
for years
God.
of
Nonsense.
illegal immigrants
This is the
in this
law
country.
and order
Now, the left will
Republicans
howl about the
repudiating the
Constitution and the
Constitution.
14th
His legal
Amendment.
argument
The
is
difference
absurd
between me and
on
them
this.
is I've
Wait,
actually
let's
read
listen.
the 14th Amendment. What it says is that all persons born or naturalized in the United States and subject to the laws and jurisdiction thereof are citizens. So nobody believes that the kid of a Mexican diplomat in this country enjoys birthright citizenship. Not a judge or legal scholar in this country will disagree with me on that. Well, if the kid of a
Everyone
Mexican
disagrees with
diplomat
you on
doesn't
that,
enjoy
including the
birthright
U.S.
citizenship,
Supreme
neither
Court.
does the kid of illegal
But doesn't also illegal immigrants still have to follow our laws?
Of course
they
they
can't
have
just
to.
break
They
the
pay
law.
taxes.
Right.
Of course they follow our laws. They're
Right.
subject to all of our laws.
Right.
But
So
that
it's-
exception is, and the Supreme Court's very clear on that.
Yeah.
That's for foreign diplomats.
Right, right, right.
Not for. And
I'm
you know,
pretty sure immigrants don't have diplomatic immunity.
They don't, of course
Right,
not.
Right.
And if we followed him, you would have to check the parentage of every child born in the U.S. to make sure
Right.
that their parents weren't illegal.
Right.
And what was the last country to do that?
Nazi Germany.
Nazi Germany, to
Yeah.
make sure no one had a
He-
drop of
he's-
Jewish blood.
He's so smug, you know. He thinks he's so smart. He's got this perfect legal, but it's absurd.
It's
like
absurd.
you said, immigrants don't have to follow, don't have diplomatic immunity.
Of course
they
not.
do have to follow our laws. They pay taxes.
They're arrested
So
if
his-
they commit crimes.
Right. So his whole argument
They don't
makes no
right.
sense.
Then, they can't go to some other country if they commit a crime, like
Right.
the son of the British ambassador can
Right,
do.
right.
And the Supreme Court has already ruled on this.
Right. Right.
His last debate, he said we were all bought and paid for. And I thought about that for a little while and said, I can't imagine how you could say that knowing that you were just in business with the Chinese Communist Party and the same people that funded Hunter Biden millions of dollars.
Hunter Biden.
Hunter Biden, there's another one.
So look,
So now we're up to 7 big threats.
I wasn't expecting Hunter Biden to be connected to Vivek, though. That's pretty interesting.
That's pretty interesting. I wasn't expecting that either.
Of anybody who's involved.
Some of us are tainted.
Excuse me. Thank you for speaking while I'm interrupting. While I'm speaking.
You said
If I may finish.
Well, let's speak over each other now so no one can hear you.
Gentlemen, you'll have your turn.
One of the challenges
Can we please focus on the issues that matter? We know we did business in China. Everybody knows that.
If I may address,
focus on holding Joe Biden accountable.
You know, we're missing one big villain here.
Who?
Hillary Clinton.
She'll be raised.
They'll get to her.
They'll get to her. Yeah.
I agree with Ron DeSantis on China. When every other CEO expanded into the Chinese market, you know what I did with my first company? We opened a subsidiary in China. But you know what I did that was different than every other company? We got the hell out of there. And when I started my next company, Strive, right when that's years ago. Right when I started my next company, Strive, to compete against BlackRock. Excuse me.
This is really devolving into a
I made
food
a
fight.
commitment that we would never do business
They want to attack
in
him.
China. And I will say something.
Why attack him? He's like an 8% in the
I was interrupted by a lot
polls.
of people here, and I want to be
He
respectful
was a big
because I
focal
believe
point
these
last time, and it was a big mistake.
Right. Just because he's the future, you know, he's so young and he could be powerful in the future.
He's
I
like a
guess.
young Trump.
Yeah, basically.
Much slimmer, though.
Yeah.
I don't think he weighs 215 pounds.
Let's not talk about people's weight, okay?
All right.
Let's have a policy debate.
What's going on?
Let us have a policy
I can't understand a word they're saying.
Let's have a policy debate. And the right answer is we need to declare independence from China.
Thank you very
and I will
much.
see that through.
Vice President Pence, in 2017, the Trump-Pence administration canceled DACA, which put the legal status of 600,000 Dreamers in the hands of the courts. Dreamers work and they pay taxes. As president, if the Supreme Court ends DACA, would you work with Congress to reach a permanent solution for Dreamers?
Well, first, let me say I'm glad Vivek pulled out of his business deal in 2018 in China. That must have been about the time you decided to start voting in presidential elections.
Drop the mic.
Participating in elections. So
Why are
let
they
me speak to
bothering
this.
attacking this guy? It's crazy.
I negotiated the Remain in Mexico policy with the Mexican government. We used economic power to bring the Mexican government to the table. We built hundreds of miles of border wall, and despite what's said here today, we reduced illegal immigration and asylum abuse by 90%.
He hasn't said a word about DACA. That was
and
the
as
question.
President of the United States, I can
Oh,
do
right.
that.
He hasn't said a word about
The
DACA.
truth
That was
is-
the question.
The truth is we need to fix a broken immigration system, and I'll do that as well. But first and foremost, a nation without borders is not a nation.
Nothing about
And
DACA.
we have to secure the southern
to the,
border of the United
the
States
open
of
border.
America. I know how to do it, and we will do it again. Let me say one other thing about China. Let me say one other
Question
thing
about
China.
DACA, and they're going to
Congress to
one of their thugs,
give
China.
a solution to the problem that Dreamers have right now. They are on a limbo.
Well, let me tell you, I served in Congress for 12 years, although it seemed longer. But you know, something I've done
That went flat,
different
that joke.
than everybody on this.
You know Mike Pence, he's just a comedic genius, right?
He really is, yeah. The next Chris Rock.
Right.
The white Chris Rock, yeah.
There you go.
But you've increased spending in Florida by 30%.
Not a word on DACA.
When I was a member of Congress in 2006,
Who
right
cares
after
what you did in
Hurricane Katrina,
2006?
Dana, you remember it, we stood our ground. I led House conservatives. We cut $100 billion out of the federal budget. It can be done, but as I said in the
And
last
what would you
debate,
cut
I'll say
now?
again, this is no time for on-the-job training. I'm going to be ready on day one to get Congress to step
ready
up,
on day
secure
one,
the
but
southern
not to
border
talk
of the
about
United
DACA.
States, build a military fitted
Which he
to
was
our
asked.
times, and we're going to get spending in Washington, D.C. under control.
Oh, yeah, just like they did under Trump. $7.8 trillion to the deficit.
How will these candidates make America safer as rising crime plagues our cities?
Rising
Debate
crime,
night
Dad.
continues in moments.
It's all due to Biden and the Green New Deal.
Right.
Maybe the union thugs.
All right, they're going to commercial, so it's just us now, guys.
Any questions from our...
If you guys have any questions, now's the time.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts so far? Dad, what are your thoughts so far?
Not going to move the needle 1 inch.
Right.
Not 1 inch. No one distinguished themselves. And, yes, politicians evade They talk about what they want to talk about. But I have to say, this was the extravaganza of avoiding questions and avoiding hard choices on policies. You're asked about DACA and you start talking about China. You're asked about the UAW and you start talking about the border.
We got a super chat from Jordan Johnson. Thank you, Jordan.
Thank you.
They asked, Professor, I'd like to hear your thoughts on the utter chaos that surely surrounded Abraham Lincoln's first 100 days in office. Does any administration that has come before or existed since compare?
Obviously not, because Lincoln was really afraid that the Confederate forces would invade Washington, D.C., take over the government, and perhaps kill him. At one point he said, I don't even know if there really is a union, because the troops that were supposed to come and protect Washington were so long delayed. Eventually, they did come, but, the early battles were in Virginia, not far away from the Capitol. The only even remote comparability, I would have to say, would be FDR, who took office in 1933 at the bottom of the Great Depression, when the American economy was truly in danger of an absolute collapse and the nation falling into social chaos.
Kevin wants to know, who do you think will be the next GOP candidate to drop out? Burgum, I guess, right? Or no, there's still, Asa is still around, right?
Asa didn't make the debate.
But he didn't drop out.
No.
Who do you think is going to drop out?
They never drop out. They suspend their campaigns. But, one of these persons up there, or some of them, have to prove, that they're an alternative to Donald Trump. Railing about Joe Biden, the border, China, won't do it.
Let's see. Andrew Jones asks, do you think Sanders supporters uniting under Clinton in 2016 blunted the effects of the contest, giving them effectively 5 keys down and contributing to Clinton's popular vote win?
I think no question that the Bernie challenge was one of the factors that led to the defeat. Remember, since 2000, the popular vote hasn't meant anything.
Right.
30 years, the Republicans have won the popular vote only once, which is why in recent years I've just predicted the winners, because, the Democrats pile up 5 to 6 million extra popular votes in New York and California, which counts for nothing in the Electoral College. Before 2000, you got to go all the way back to 1888 for the popular vote and the Electoral College vote to diverge. Now it's become routine.
Thank you, N, for the super chat. They donated $9.99. Thank you. We really appreciate that.
We do.
Who did the Keys have winning the Super Bowl? That's what President Belichick wants to know.
I'm often asked to bet on sports gambling, to apply the Keys methodology, and I always decline because I don't want to end up in the Potomac with cement overshoes.
Right. We know the mob is big here in D.C., right?
Oh, yeah. Hey, the mob is everywhere.
Here's an interesting... the debate is back, folks. Give me a second.
I can't wait.
This is so exciting.
So many concrete answers to our problems.
Republican presidential debate. I do want to just remind everyone, there's 1 minute for questions, 30 seconds for a follow-up, and the more you mention each other, that means the fewer questions you're going to get. Okay, so we want to talk about crime. This has been a horrendous problem in our country. The Fox News and others have been covering it. Governor Christie, crime in major cities is striking fear into the hearts of Americans. Just last night...
Fear.
Philadelphia. You said in the last debate that you would use...
Look, clothes on the ground. Aren't you scared?
I'm very scared.
But they are stretched as well, and they could not handle all of the lawlessness, the shoplifting, all the carjackings, the armed robberies. They're all surging. Progressive prosecutors were elected by their constituents, and they can't be fired by a president. So what would you do to end the revolving door of criminality?
Well, look, Dana, I'm the only one on this stage who's done it. For 7 years, I ran the 5th largest office in this country at the U.S. Attorney's Office in New Jersey, and we set records for the number of prosecutions that we brought that still have not been broken. And the reason was that we went after the crime that was affecting people's lives. And as president, I will appoint an attorney general and instruct that attorney general that you are to put all the resources that are necessary to bring our cities back
more spending.
under control.
Put more resources.
The fact is,
in.
they will
I
be
thought they were all
stretched.
cutting spending.
There's no doubt about that, but that's what
Not
they
when
take
it
the
comes to
job
law
for,
enforcement.
because they love
Or
the
the border.
idea of enforcing the law. We've got to bring law and order back to
Or
this
for
country.
Tim Scott child
And not
care.
just in our
You know,
cities.
whatever your favorite
We need
thing
law and
is,
order back
you're willing
everywhere.
to spend.
People are threatened there. We need
And who do you
rural
cut?
areas.
Don't cut you. Don't cut me. Cut the man behind the tree.
What does that mean?
It means you never cut anything that you think benefits you and your constituents. Only these phantom cuts for someone who doesn't exist.
Okay.
And not because of your indictments.
You haven't heard them
You're not here tonight
say one
because
word
you're
about what they
afraid
actually
of
cut
being on the stage and
out of
defending your
government.
record.
They're going to
You're
cut
ducking
Medicaid.
these
What are the big
things.
spending? Defense, Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security. Are they going to cut those things? They're talking about a big defense buildup for the border, for China. More money, more spending.
Right.
Have the ability to do that. How do you think about dealing with the root causes of crime, especially this revolving door of the criminals that just get out and come back and commit another crime?
Well, the crime in these cities is one of the strongest signs of the decaying of America. We can't be successful.
The decay. He's so negative. It's ridiculous. The decaying of America.
Yeah, you know, it's scare tactics.
Yeah.
My wife and I have met 3 people who have been mugged on the street, and that would have never happened 10 or 20 years ago.
Wrong.
What?
Wrong. Crime is
What?
lower now than it was 20 years
so
ago.
absurd.
Much lower.
No one got mugged before 2021. No one in the world got mugged.
And no one gets mugged, you know, under Republican
Right,
presidents.
of course. But he knows 3 people who've been mugged
Wow.
under Biden. Wow.
Justice Department to bring civil rights cases against all of those left-wing Soros-funded prosecutors.
Oh,
We're not-
Soros.
Oh,
Bingo.
Soros.
Everybody
We
check
got the
your
next one.
Everybody check your bingo card. Soros.
Yes, check it off. We knew Soros was coming.
Rioting and disorder.
I'm surprised they haven't talked about Soros's Jewish space lasers
Right.
causing havoc in the U.S.
Recruitment is in the tank. Morale is at a record low. 3 years ago, you signed a pledge to support law enforcement. Now, pledges are a nice idea, but what's your actual plan to get more police on our streets?
More spending,
Well, and
of
I
course.
actually did it in South Carolina, too. You know, what we knew in South Carolina was you take care of those who take care of you. We have to start taking care of law enforcement, but it's not just taking care of them with words. It's making sure that you also follow through on what they do. Right now, we have a...
It's funny, too, that he said there was no mugging 10 to 15 years ago. That was when Obama was president.
Yeah, I know.
So,
yeah.
Thanks,
well,
Obama.
20 years ago was George W. Bush, so you know,
okay.
he's being bipartisan.
Okay.
And he has no idea what he's talking about.
Right, of course. But I'm just saying, 10 years ago, if he's talking about how great it was and there was
Under
no
Obama.
crime, it was Obama, right?
Yeah.
We
He's
have to
hoping
look at
people
what-
forget about Obama and don't do the math.
Talking to the mic, not...
He's thinking people forget about Obama and won't do the math.
Right.
we need. And right now there is a company in Bristol, Tennessee that produces that, yet our federal government only gets it from China. We need to be focusing on companies that produce in America
China's
and
causing the
supporting
crime.
those companies that produce in America, not companies that are helping China.
Governor, we will be talking.
Look, China is a big issue. It's not like it's not
but
an
what's
issue.
their answer?
Right.
Yeah, I mean, they can rail against China from now till the end of time, but what are they going to do about it?
For the first time ever, a Univision poll found that mass shootings and gun safety are one of the most important issues for Latino voters. Mental health concerns are not unique to the United States, but gun
I have to give
violence
this guy
is.
the eyebrow award.
Eyebrow award?
The eyebrow award.
Okay,
He's got
cool.
a great eyebrows.
He does have good eyebrows. That's
He really
true.
does.
Is I think that the liberal left seems to be just completely bent on prosecuting law-abiding citizens that are gun owners, because every solution they have to this is take away the Second Amendment rights of Americans, and somehow that's going to solve the problem. But all these cities that we're talking about that he showed the videos of tonight, they have some of the strictest gun laws in the country. So we know that that's not what's working. What we have to do is get back to the core issues about the family. We have to get back to behavioral health and mental health. We've got to get back
mental
to
health.
actually
More
enforcing the laws
spending.
these people talked about,
Sounds
and
good to
like
me.
we've done in North Dakota.
Have you
where we're-
toted up all the things they say they're going to spend on? The
lot.
military, the border, mental health, child care, 3 or 4 other things. But they're also going to cut spending.
Right.
Funding the police because they've been attacked in the press.
Fund the police. Yeah, more money for the police.
All these jobs available in America. Why would you be a policeman if people don't even respect them? Every time I see a policeman, the first thing I say is thank you. And so does everybody else in my family and most of the people in our state, because they know we have to respect the people that are out there defending us every single day.
Can I answer the question on mass shootings?
Mr. Ramaswamy, according to Customs and Border Protection, about 90% of fentanyl is seized at official border crossings.
Thank
and
you.
57% of the smugglers are U.S. citizens. How
Wow,
will you stop
that's a good point, too.
Thank
brought
you.
into the country,
This
mostly by
notion that,
U.S. citizens?
these migrants are bringing the fentanyl in is utter nonsense.
Right.
One is we do have to seal that southern border. Building the wall is not enough. They're building cartel-financed tunnels underneath that wall. Semi-trucks can drive through them. We have to use our own military to seal the Swiss cheese of a southern border. But we also have to be honest. There's a demand-side problem in this country, too. A mental
That's the
health
first intelligent thing he said.
Yeah, that's true.
But what's he going to do about that? More money for mental health.
But he also didn't talk about the fact that it's coming through ports of entry. He's talking about these tunnels and military, but
that's not where it's coming.
Right. She just said 90%.
through ports. We all knew that.
Right.
We've known that for years.
Right.
Make sure that never happens. But it's also our job to make sure that 17-year-olds don't turn to Percocet via Snapchat. We have to bring back mental health care in this country.
There it is, more
Not with
spending.
This all sounds great, but I don't remember Republicans ever funding mental health initiatives.
What they've done is cut mental health.
Right.
But if you're 16
And if you look at the red states, they have the worst mental health systems in the country.
That we can both agree on, and we can revive both the mental health of this country while stopping the fentanyl epidemic that will kill more people this year than who died on 9/11. And I refuse to be a passive bystander sitting in the White House like the hollowed out husk of a current president we have. We will step up and address this problem to stand for Americans and our children.
That was he had some fine points.
That was better, a little better.
Demand is an issue for sure.
Yeah, demand is an issue, but what are you going to do about it? More money for mental health, which Republicans never do.
And the stories that I've seen in Florida,
Oh,
we
more
had
stories.
an infant, 18 months, parents rented an Airbnb. And apparently the people that had rented it before were using drugs. The infant was crawling, the toddler was crawling on the carpet and ingested fentanyl residue and died. Are we just going to sit here and let this happen, this carnage happen in our country? I am not going to do that. So I guarantee you on day one, this border is going to be a day one issue for me as president. We're going to declare it a national emergency. Yes, we'll build the wall. We'll do remain in
anything
Mexico.
you want to build
but
a
those
wall,
Mexican
put the military. It will do zero good on getting the fentanyl in.
All right,
Zero.
Vice President Pence, we're going to move on to a different issue. Hold on, sir. Vice President Pence.
$5 billion.
Just last month, Vice President Pence, you said if elected, you would repeal all Obamacare mandates. However, you also made that same promise in 2016. And at that time, Trump-Pence had congressional majorities for at least the first 2 years, and you did not deliver on that promise. So Obamacare, right now, it is more popular than ever.
138.
Nice.
Nice. Thank you,
Welcome
guys.
all.
Welcome.
And there'll be a commercial soon, so get your questions ready.
Yes.
Look, I'm someone
so
that believes
sincere. It's great questions, so important, and then he'll go on not to answer it.
There are 3 beautiful little girls. I am sick and tired of these mass shootings happening in the United States of America.
Hear,
if
hear.
I'm president of the United States, I'm going to go to the Congress of the United States, and we're going to pass a federal expedited death penalty for anyone involved in a mass
that's going to do a lot of good.
shooting.
They all kill themselves anyways.
Exactly.
That is not. Oh my god.
Oh my God. Talk about a non-answer to anything.
A lot of them kill themselves in the act.
Yeah.
What's the death
if
penalty
they're mass
gonna do?
murderers, they're going to be either locked away forever or executed anyway.
To mete out justice and send a message to these would-be killers that you are not going to live out your days behind bars.
None of them
You're
expect
going
to.
meet justice in this system.
As you say, they commit suicide or suicide by cop. They don't care about their lives, or they wouldn't be doing that.
Well, thank you for reiterating the question, because I'd love to answer it. Look, I think it's one of the choices here. You know, my former running mate, Donald Trump, actually has a plan to start to consolidate more power in Washington, D.C., consolidate more power in the executive branch. If I'm president of the United States...
You just advocated more power through the executive branch. He advocated a new federal law to deal with mass shootings.
Right.
It's so wonderful to hear them all talk about cutting spending, limited government, and yet, to the extent they have any answers to anything, it's more government, more spending.
Right.
Of Education will allow states to innovate. We're going to revive federalism in America, and states are going to help bring America.
Federalism didn't really work very well in America, did it?
No, it sure didn't. And these great federalists like Jim Jordan and the other Republican chairs, what have they done to support federalism? Belly flopped right into the decision-making of under state law, of the prosecutor in Manhattan and the prosecutor in Atlanta. You know, one of the biggest intrusions of the federal government into states' rights that we've seen in years.
More expensive. You see insurance.
And by the way, what does Pence want to do? A national abortion ban that would overturn the laws of 30 states. Great federalist.
Of my grocery cart when I get to the checkout line because the total goes
more
up
stories.
so quickly.
Someone must have
this
told
is
him.
very real.
His
and
consultants
people are
must have said, be folksy, tell stories. I have to say, though, you ain't folksy. That's not your thing.
No, not at all.
You're not Ronald Reagan.
No, not at all.
trash can on day one. You're not going to have to worry about that. We're going to open up all of our energy. We will be energy dominant in this country. That will lower your gas prices. And what we need to do with health care is recognize our health care is putting patients at the back of the bus. We have big pharma, big insurance, and big government, and we need to tackle that.
Who are all donating to your campaign, big pharma.
I'm glad to hear them talk about health care.
Yeah.
You know,
But
they
what was
almost
his
never
answer?
they almost never do. But yeah, he didn't really have an answer.
Remember Donald Trump promised within 2 weeks to have a great new health care plan?
Right.
That was 4 years ago. We're still waiting.
Right.
You know, we're basically saying we want to, this is a field of dreams. You can do well in the state, but we're not going to be like California and have massive numbers of people on government programs without work requirements. We believe you work and you got to do that. And so that goes for all the welfare benefits. And you know what that's done, Stuart? Our unemployment rate is the lowest amongst any big state. We have the highest GDP growth amongst any big state. And even CNBC, no fan of mine, ranked Florida the #1 economy in America.
We're moving on.
On the topic of healthcare, Governor Haley, healthcare is the leading cause of bankruptcy
That was
for
probably the best
American
I've
families,
seen
accounting for
DeSantis. A little better. But again, empty.
Yeah, I don't know.
Americans who get sick from financial ruin.
First of all, how can we be the best country in the world and have the most expensive health care in the world? We have an issue.
These people sound like Bernie Sanders out here.
Yeah.
Wow.
With Tylenol.
Well, wait till you see what her answer is.
And take it because you're paying for it anyway. Why is it that when we got the bill, the insurance company and the hospital negotiated the bill for her without her having anything to do with it? When I am president, we will break all of it, from the insurance company to the hospitals to the doctor's offices to the PBMs to the pharmaceutical
do
companies.
what?
We will make it all transparent.
Break them
because
all?
when you do that, you will realize that's what the problem is. Second thing is,
I mean, that's not a bad answer.
Not bad, but how do you break all that? The best thing that's broken it is the Affordable Care Act, which has insured tens of millions of additional people.
systems and make
And if
sure
you get
that
rid
they
of
can
insurance like she wants to do, you're Bernie Sanders. You
Right.
have a single-payer national plan. Otherwise, people can't afford health care.
Right.
And you said that right away. Is she the new Bernie Sanders?
We'll see magic happen, but we're going to have to make every part of the industry open up and show us where their warts are, because they all have them, and we need to fix this on behalf of the
Governor
American
Burgum,
people.
in 30 seconds. Do you have a better way in 30 seconds?
Well, yes, we're not talking about the real problem ever. We talk about why do we have the most expensive health care in the world? It's because the federal government got involved the same way they did with EVs, and they said, we're going to subsidize a particular kind of software back in 2008 under Obama, and they said, hey, we're going to do this. It's going to make everybody more productive.
Huh?
All
Obama.
of you that are
Who knows
watching
what
have
he's
been to a
talking
doctor's
about.
office when the doctor's got his back to you and their hands on a keyboard. The only industry in the world that's ever absorbed $1 trillion of IT and became less productive. They saw less patients per day. Is U.S. healthcare because they were subsidizing a certain kind of technology? It wasn't about
what technology. He hasn't named it.
I have no idea what he's talking about. No one does. But he does have great eyebrows.
True.
Expensive and less competitive.
That was a great transition because we are going to move on the future of education in America. What's the government's role in finding a way forward? The second Republican debate rolls on from Simi Valley.
All right, I'm going to run to the restroom, see if we get any questions.
Okay. He's going to run to the restroom, guys, here. Now it's just me. I mean, I guess you can ask. I don't have any answers to any political questions necessarily. Hello, everybody. I'll try to save some of these questions that are coming in when he comes back. Let's see. Do you think Biden's too soft when it comes to calling out his trolls? Probably. But I don't think it would make that big of a difference if he started calling people out or not. That's just my opinion. Why do Democrats raise more money than Republicans in presidential elections, even though they... do they? I don't necessarily think they do. Hey, Ryan. Hey, Elemental Bot. Hello, Alex Shim. Yeah, I don't know if that's true. If anybody has any data on who raises more, I think it depends election to election. Sometimes Democrats raise more, sometimes Republicans raise more. What do I think that is the biggest issue that isn't being addressed enough in this debate or generally? In this debate, probably climate change hasn't been addressed. Generally, probably education. I don't know. That's just me riffing right now. He's walking back now, the man of the hour.
I'm back.
He's back. He's going to take a second to sit down, though, of course.
I'll take questions. Keep those donations coming in. We need them.
Yeah, we do need them.
We're a shoestring operation.
Let's see here. If the elections will be decided by the popular vote instead of the electoral vote in the future, how will that affect the keys?
It's an impossible question because it's not going to happen.
Kane Taylor keeps saying,
I wish it would, but it's not going to happen.
Patrick Murray asks, how likely do you see DeSantis becoming Trump's running mate in 2024?
Zero. Absolutely zero. He adds nothing. He's just sort of a Trump light, a mini-me Donald Trump. He doesn't add anything. Not ethnically, not gender-wise, not even in terms of a state, because Florida, is not really a swing state.
Well,
so I don't see it.
You think Trump's going to worry about gender and ethnicity when he picks
He might.
this?
You never know.
I think
you got to understand, the only thing Trump cares about is Trump.
Himself.
Right, and if he thinks picking up Nikki Haley or Tim Scott will help him, he'll do it. He doesn't care.
I think he's going to pick somebody totally random, nobody on this debate stage.
Yeah.
I don't think.
By the way, so far at the halfway point, the big winner is Donald Trump.
Right.
None of this will move the needle, in any consequential way.
Someone just asked, who do you think's winning? So your answer
is Donald Trump.
I'm trying to think who I think is doing. I mean, look, Nikki Haley's always solid.
I always like Nikki Haley,
yeah.
But she's a bit out of step, with the Trump-dominated Republican Party.
Here's a question. Would you rather correctly predict all future elections or have your preferred candidate always win?
Great question.
That's an interesting question.
That's a really interesting question. Of course, as I've said many times, my predictions are predictions. They're not endorsements. And of course, I'd rather have my preferred candidates win than stoke my ego with correct predictions. Got to understand, I am unique among predictors. Look at, all of these pollsters and pundits. They give you probabilities. So like Nate Silver, the king of polling and punditry, in 2016 said there's like a 79% chance Hillary Clinton would win. And when she loses, he says, see, I told you there was a 21% chance she would lose. So he never can be wrong. I actually say who's going to win. I put myself out on a limb, and I've been doing this now for 40 years.
Keep the questions coming, guys, because we're saving you from Birch Gold Coin ads right now. Look at this.
Oh, my God.
Get up to $10,000 in precious metals for free.
For free, yeah, sure.
These ads are wild. Let's see.
And, I know a great investment counselor. I think his name is Madoff.
Isn't he dead?
He's dead,
okay. Yeah. Okay. The debate is back.
And we are back live at the Ronald Reagan Presidential Library in the Air Force One Pavilion for the second Republican debate. And let's get back to our questions. Governor Haley, American students, they are in academic trouble. They have lower scores in math and reading. There's chronic absenteeism. That's at record highs. And this has even been called education homicide.
Huh?
I never heard that one.
What does that mean?
They're asking a lot of questions that really the federal government doesn't have much to do with, like local crime, like education. Even mental health is primarily a state and local issue.
Right.
School choices.
I wish they would ask, because they're also supportive of the military, if they agree with Senator Tuberville's blocking all of the military appointments, and if they agree with Donald Trump that General Milley should be executed. But they're not going to ask him that.
Yeah.
That would be an interesting question.
Not really.
13-year-olds are scoring at the lowest levels they've been scoring in reading and math in decades. So the first thing we've got to do is we've got to make sure we catch our kids back up. We have to make sure they can read. A child that can't read by third grade is 4 times less likely to graduate high school.
How are you going to do that from the federal government?
We need complete transparency in the classroom. No parent should ever wonder what's being said or taught.
Right. They talk about ending the Department of Education,
right?
But then also want to promise all these things from a federal perspective.
From a federal perspective, yeah.
Right.
As we said, they all talked about cutting all these things, cutting government, and in virtually a response to every question, they want to expand the government and expand spending.
It is interesting, yeah.
Really bring in that parental involvement, that's when we'll start to see a difference. But we've got to get parents back included.
Federal government
we've got to quit spending time on this DEI and CRT and instead focus on
CRT.
You think anyone knows what CRT is?
And on
CRT,
critical race theory. That's
what they
it.
need to do to have the jobs of the next generation.
On the subject of education, a question for Governor
So that's
Christie.
villain number 10, I think, CRT.
Right.
But minorities are not doing well with math and reading. Black and Hispanic students averaging 29 points lower than white students in New Jersey. Would you address minorities first?
You have to address all.
Such a bad question.
In our state, Stuart, frankly,
it's a state issue.
That gap was close to 50%. And what we did was institute more charter schools and more Renaissance schools and more public school choice in New Jersey with innovative solutions in cities like Camden, where now we took what was the worst school districts in America during my time, and we have now increased that by nearly 40% in terms of their proficiency. It can be done when you give people choice. But let's tell the truth to everybody about what this is. This public school system is no longer run by the public. It is run by the teachers' unions in this country.
The teachers' union, the union bosses.
Union bosses.
We knew we'd get back to the union bosses.
Yep.
Worst of their members and defending them rather than advocating for our kids. And when you have the President of the United States sleeping with a member of the teachers union, there is no chance.
Huh?
Whoa.
That's his wife. He's not.
Yeah, come on.
That's not right.
It's not Donald Trump sleeping with a porn star.
That's not right.
That is
to be
a
the
low
best
blow.
they can be. A president of the United States has to take on the teachers union. I did it in New Jersey, and I will do it as
What are you
president
going to do to
of
the
the United
teachers
States.
union? As president.
I have a question for you.
You have no power over them.
DeSantis, I have a question for you.
Are you guys having trouble seeing me?
Florida's new Black History curriculum says, quote, slaves develop skills which in some instances could be applied for their personal benefit. You have said slaves develop skills in spite of slavery, not because of it.
He needs
But
a
many
shave.
are still hurt. For descendants of
nice
slaves,
scruff like me.
this is personal. What is your message to them?
So first of all, that's a hoax that was perpetrated by Kamala Harris. We are not going to be doing
another
that.
villain.
Second of all, that was written by descendants of slaves. These are great black history scholars, so we need to stop playing these games. Here's the deal. Our country's education system is in decline because it's focused on indoctrination, denying parents' rights. Florida represents the revival of American education.
And it's a
We're
disaster.
ranked #1 in the nation in education by U.S. News and World Report. My wife and I, we have a 6.5.
That was before you came in, and now it's going down.
Universal school choice. We enacted universal school choice. We didn't just talk about Parents' Bill of Rights. We enacted the Parents' Bill of Rights. We eliminated critical race theory, and we now have
critical race
American
theory.
civics and the Constitution in our schools in
He
a
has
really
no
big
clue
way,
what it even
just
is.
like
It's
President
like
Reagan
Soros.
asked for. And
Great
his fair
buzzword.
I feel like nobody attacks school choice enough. School choice is going to destroy
the
education.
public school system.
Yeah.
It's a
the public
disaster.
school system has educated millions and millions
Right.
of Americans. If you have people picking and choosing, you're going to have 2 classes of education in this country.
His big and higher education is what he's talking about, the U.S. News, was the new college, which he totally turned around, appointed all these conservatives to the board, fired the president, changed the curriculum. It collapsed in the U.S. News' latest ratings.
Right.
One of the biggest declines of any institution in the country.
The decision. So often we think that all the issues, you talked about crime and education and healthcare, we always think that those issues go back to slavery. Here's the challenge though. Black families survived slavery. We survived poll taxes and literacy tests. We survived discrimination being woven into the laws of our country. What was hard to survive was Johnson's Great Society.
Oh,
where
God.
they decided
Another boogeyman. Yes, right. The Great Society.
to take the black father out of the household.
Let's see, Johnson passed the Civil Rights Act of 1964, the Voting Rights Act of 1965 as part of the Great Society. That was just disaster for minorities in America.
And put Americans back at work together as one American family. Our nation continues to go in the right direction. It's why I can say I have been discriminated against, but America is not a racist country. Never, ever doubt who we are. We are the greatest country on God's green earth. And frankly, the city on the hill needs a brand new leader. And I'm asking for your vote.
I'm going to have a question for you, Mr. Ramaswamy. Over 10.7 million students in over 18,000 public schools nationwide have the ability to change their identity without parental notification. Governor Christie told Stewart last week that he would pass a federal law to protect parental rights. Would you try to do the same?
Oh, more big government.
I have to be very clear about this. Transgenderism, especially in kids, is a mental health disorder. We have to acknowledge the truth of that for what it is.
Is that true?
Never heard that before from any doctor.
Parents have the right to know. And you know what the hypocrisy of this is? Even New Hampshire failed to actually get...
One big thing, reason why they sometimes don't tell parents is because the parents often abuse their kids once they find out they're gay, or trans. So it's a complicated issue, but obviously this far right stance that parents deserve to know, it's more nuanced than that.
And we've had gays and trans throughout history. They will always be part of our society.
Right.
And to condemn them and demonize them and penalize them is just inhumane.
I'm not saying he's necessarily wrong about parents knowing. I'm saying there's a more nuanced debate to be had than what he's presenting.
Yeah, of
and
course.
what probably all of them will present, which would be like,
and again, what does
parents
that have
need
to do with the
know.
federal? You know, there are such big issues, and they keep asking about these issues that are overwhelmingly state and local issues. There's not much the federal government can do.
Can't be notified. But you want to be president. Would you try to pass a federal law to say parents have that right?
I think this is a state's issue, but I do want to say
Thank
something.
you. Finally.
Doug, we've been talking about
The
issues
last
about how
5
broken
questions
Washington,
have all been
and I
state
respect
issues.
all of the people
and
on
there
the
are
stage
such
here.
big federal issues to ask about.
The reason why we're not talking about education or health care or safety being a problem in North Dakota is because we have a business leader I've got more experience as a business leader than I think this whole group combined. I know I've created more jobs than everybody else on stage, thousands of high-paying jobs that have real meaning. So as a business leader, you come in and you treat the taxpayer like a customer.
Maybe he
So in
created
North
more
Dakota,
jobs than
instead of
anyone
fighting
else.
with the teachers' unions, we actually created
know
a
how he did
K-12
it.
coordinating council. Everybody gets in the room, and the customer is
But
the
you do
student.
understand that this is an issue that many people in America really are concerned about, worried about parents and notification in schools.
Yes, and that's why we have 50 platforms of innovation. That's why we have states. There are certain things the federal government is supposed to do. It's not the Department of Education. That needs to be assembled. We got to move it back to states. Do what we did in North Dakota. Instead of like, oh, here's a choice school and here's an old school, the old way with the teachers union, the kids are trapped. We made every school in North Dakota an innovation school. Every school got out from under the red tape, and the things that help teach the values that we're trying to get, like 4-H, like FF.
Why is public schools under so much attack? I mean, again, there are big problems in public schools, but again, they've educated a wide swath of Americans.
Public education system is one of the bedrocks of American democracy and American prosperity. And to the extent you undermine it, you are destroying something that is fundamental to this country and irreplaceable.
As president, how would you protect this community from violent attacks and discrimination?
Well, as President of the United States, I'll stand up for the safety and the civil liberties of every American.
What does that mean?
From every background. And I want the American people to know that. But I want to answer the question as well, Dana, that you just asked.
Let's switch the questions again.
Because by way of full disclosure, Chris, you mentioned the president's situation. My wife isn't a member of the teachers union, but I got to admit,
and she teaches a school
I've been
that
sleeping
don't
with
allow
a teacher for 38 years.
LGBTQ
so full disclosure,
pupils or teachers.
Look, education is a state and local function.
But he's standing up for
The state of
everyone's civil
Indiana had one of the
liberties.
very first school choice programs in the country. And when I was governor of the state of Indiana, we doubled it. And as to your question, Dana, let's be very, very clear. When the Linn-Mar Community Schools in Iowa had a policy where you had to have a permission slip from your parents to get a Tylenol, but you could get a gender transition plan without notifying your parents.
What? That is not a thing.
This
There's
is
no
all
way
nonsense.
that's a thing.
And again, what does this have to do with being president?
Rights of parents, and
It's just culture war issues, obviously.
Or surgical surgery anywhere in the country. We've got to protect our kids from this radical gender ideology agenda, and we've got to empower parents at the state level with the ability to choose where their kids go to school, whether it's public, private, parochial, or homeschool. You empower
This is
parents.
what they want. Undermine public education.
If you undermine public education, you will see the percentage of educated Americans plummet.
They don't want educated Americans. Look at the way in which people vote. What group is the strongest Democratic vote, aside from issues of religion and race? College-educated people. The strongest Republican base is those without a high school education. Of course they want to undermine
Governor
public
DeSantis,
education.
you say companies like Google and Meta have too much power. Doesn't going after them give China an edge?
No, I think you look at how our society's developed. They have huge amount of power over our society. They've cracked down on free speech. We're not saying you don't want them to do business, but you want it to be a free market. And right now they're monopolies. But this issue of China, I think, is really going to be fundamental. We have subcontracted out so much of our national needs
Like Donald
to the
Trump's
CCP.
trademarks in China.
You really like talking about Donald Trump, don't you?
Yeah, because these guys are irrelevant. Utterly irrelevant.
Fair.
States. They are our top geopolitical adversary by a country mile. Xi Jinping's got huge ambitions, not only in the
forget
Asia
about
Pacific,
Russia,
but as
who's
you mentioned
waging a
earlier, in our
genocidal
region.
war in Ukraine.
But ultimately, we've got to beat them on the
Have they
economy.
said anything about Russia?
No.
Not a word.
No, not a word about
It's all
Russia.
China.
Right. Which is not involved in any active conflict.
Nothing. I mean, yes, they are.
They're a
a problem. They're an issue.
Right.
But the big issue right now is Russia's genocidal war.
Right.
Workers who lose a job to artificial intelligence, and to do what?
Well, look, what I think artificial intelligence offers us is an extraordinary opportunity to expand well beyond the productivity that we have now, and to have Americans be able to be involved in that revolution, Dana. You know, each time we have shown incredible innovation and
this is not a big issue for the presidency.
All kinds of new, even unthought of opportunities for folks. Yes, we have to do retraining for folks who lose some of their jobs, and we should be doing that. And we should have more training available both at the county college level and the local level for people to be able to access it. So yes, I would be in favor of that.
Government.
But this is a much bigger issue than that. We can't be afraid of innovation. America has been the great innovator of this world over the last 250 years, a technological innovator, a manufacturing innovator, and a freedom and governmental innovator. And that's why America has to continue to stand strong in the world, pro-innovation, pro-progress. And I will tell you this, as President of the United States, what I will do is to make sure that every innovator in this country gets the government the hell off its back and out of its pocket so that it can innovate and bring great new inventions to our country that will make everyone.
Only 40 some odd years old.
On government-issued devices because of its ties to the Chinese government. Yet you joined TikTok after dinner with boxer and influencer Jake Paul. Should the commander-in-chief be so easily persuaded by an influencer?
So the answer is I have a radical idea for the Republican Party. We need to win elections. And part of how we win elections is reaching the next generation of young Americans where they are. So when I get into office, I've been very clear. Kids under the age of 16 should not be using addictive social media.
Oh, more government control, more big government. Crack down on media.
How are you going to do that? How are you going to keep kids under 16 from using social media? I mean, I agree that social media is not good.
No, I agree, but
I don't know how you would ban those.
But, you know, I've lost count of how many big government, big spending.
Yeah, that is interesting. It is pretty
answers they've had.
Yeah.
Hurry.
This is supposed to be, the shades of Ronald Reagan.
Right.
That's not how he answers questions like this.
People, the best and brightest in this country.
Oh, isn't that what Trump said? He's going to hire the best people? Yeah.
On this stage included. That's how I built my companies. I want to be challenged. I want people who disagree with me. That's what makes America great, because we're not a perfect nation. We're founded on the pursuit of perfection. That is what makes America great.
Oh my God.
That is why we will end it once we win this election.
I have to jump.
Look, be honest. I know you're not, a Trump Republican or any kind of Republican. But have you heard anything inspiring?
Whoa, you hear that?
No, I missed that. What was that?
She said every time Vivek talks, she feels dumber when he talks.
People are on TikTok. That means they can get your contacts, they can get your financial information, they can get your emails, they can get text messages, they can get all of these things.
This is very important for our party.
Let's talk over each other now.
You've gone and you've helped China make medicines in China, not America. You're now wanting kids to go and get on the social media that's dangerous for all of us. You went and you were in business with the Chinese that gave Hunter Biden $5 million. We can't.
Hunter Biden.
Hunter Biden.
We can't have TikTok.
5 million. I'd rather have the 2 billion that Jared Kushner got.
Excuse me. You have 15 seconds, Mr. Ramaswamy.
Thank you. I think we would be better served as a Republican Party if we're not sitting here hurling personal insults and actually having
what a
a
man
legitimate debate
on
policy.
Above it all.
But throw out all naturalized citizens who were born to illegal immigrants. But you're a great guy, man.
Country strong, and I believe.
I really don't like this guy at all.
These are good people.
Most people don't. As I said, he's in the single digits, even among Republicans.
Stuart, can we get back to the question? The
no,
question
we cannot.
was on
Governor
technology.
DeSantis, I'm going.
Isn't he a birthright citizen?
I don't think so.
Oh, because his parents came here legally.
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
Putin has ordered assassinations across Europe.
Oh, here's
cheated
Russia.
There we go,
arms
Russia.
control treaties with the U.S. and seeks to work with China to force our decline. President Reagan believed that if you want to prevent a war, you better be prepared to fight one. Today, the Republican Party is at odds over aid to Ukraine. The price tag so far is $76 billion. But is it in our best interest to degrade Russia's military for less than 5% of what we pay annually on defense, especially when there are no U.S. soldiers in the fight?
Good question.
Yes.
war, and that's what I will do as president. We are not going to have a blank check. We will not have U.S. troops, and we're going to make the Europeans do what they need to do. But they've sent money to pay bureaucrats' pensions and salaries and funding small businesses halfway around the world. Meanwhile, our own country is being invaded. We don't even...
The border. To hell with Ukraine.
Border.
I'm not going to answer that question. I'm going to the border.
What's he on about paying small
I have
businesses?
no idea what he's talking about.
I mean, maybe he's right, but I don't know.
I don't know.
They don't care about the fentanyl deaths. They don't care about the communities being overrun because of this border. They don't care about the Mexican drug cartels. So as commander-in-chief...
Dems. Must be
Dems.
Biden and Soros. Yeah.
Right.
And Hunter Biden.
Right.
But I still haven't heard Hillary Clinton. I'm really disappointed.
That is true.
Maybe she's just irrelevant.
Maybe.
We send over to Ukraine is guaranteed. It's a loan. It is not 90% of the money that we send over there is loan. Well, we can talk about this, but at the end of the day, 90% of the money that we send over there is actually in the form of a loan. It's not actually not be paid by Ukraine. It's paid by the NATO or NATO allies.
So I think it's a good
Number two.
topic.
I think it's a really good topic too. But I will say let's debate the fact that our national vital interest is in degrading the Russian military. By degrading the Russian military, we actually keep our homeland safer, we keep our troops at home, and we all understand Article 5 of NATO.
We have to level with the American people.
I thought you said something about waiting until your turn to talk. So hold on. So at the end of the day,
that guy is so rude.
I'll be happy to debate this.
I'll respond.
I'll look forward to this one right now. So at the end of the day, when you think about the fact that if you want to keep American troops at home, attack on NATO territory would bring us and our troops in. By degrading the Russian military, we reduce, if not eliminate, an attack on NATO territory.
Finish that exchange.
That's the most
we have to level
sensible
with the
thing I've
American
heard
people.
tonight.
We have to level
It's
with
not
the
an
American
answer,
people on
but
this issue.
it
The
makes
reality
sense.
is just because Putin is not Putin's an evil dictator does not mean that Ukraine is good. This is a country that has banned 11 opposition parties.
A win
that has
for
actually
Russia is a
that
win
is not
for
true.
China.
We're driving
a win
Russia.
For Russia is a
Let's
win
apologize for
China.
Putin.
But I forgot you like China. That's why you're
That's what Reagan would have done.
The hurling personal insults isn't helping. China is the real enemy, and we're driving Russia further into China's arms. We need a reasonable peace plan to end this, especially this is a country whose president just last week was hailing a Nazi in his own ranks.
Ukraine, that's a green light to China to take Taiwan.
We need a
peace comes through strength.
We need a reasonable plan to peace.
Governor Christie. Talk over each other.
Governor Christie. Governor Christie. President Biden's first 2 years have brought China, Russia, and Iran closer together. Are we focused too much on Ukraine and not enough on this threat from the New World Order?
No, they're all connected, Stuart. They're all connected.
Of course.
The Chinese are paying for the Russian war in Ukraine. The Iranians are supplying more sophisticated weapons, and so are the North Koreans now as well, with the encouragement of the Chinese. The naivete on this stage from some of these folks is extraordinary.
The only coherent statements on this are from the fringe candidates.
Right.
DeSantis totally blew it.
Right.
Just started talking about the border.
He stinks, man. He
is
really
terrible.
stinks.
It wouldn't be so bad. Every
He's not
one
as bad
of
as
them
that other
has
guy,
been
though.
wrong.
Vivek.
And the fact of the
I mean, what Ramaswamy is proposing is essentially appeasement, right?
Of course.
Went so well in World War II, right?
Yeah.
And we are not going to solve it by going over
if he had been
and
in
cuddling up
charge,
the-
in 1940, we'd all be going Heil Hitler.
You're not supposed to do that. We're going to get our stream banned.
Yeah.
That was, what should I say? That was a reenactment. That was not a...
no, it was a reenactment.
A literal one,
right.
yes.
It was
stop.
Figurative, but you get my point. You made the point. You don't appease the dictators, or
Right.
you wind up under their thumb.
Right.
1991, who said
Never
that was
worked appeasement.
Right.
the Soviet
And
Union
Ronald Reagan
fell.
was the opposite of an appeaser.
Stop it, and when I'm president, we will.
Governor
Very
Burgum,
nice.
I want to get to Governor Burgum. He hasn't had a chance. I have a question I think you're going to really like. Or at
Hey.
least you have experience
Sorry,
in
that's
it.
our dog.
And and we need to talk about America's farmers because there is a foreign policy connection here. The U.S. and China are in this fierce economic competition. It's hurting American businesses, and there is blowback against American farmers because China then targets them in retaliation. How would you, as president, protect American farmers and ranchers from that kind of retaliation from a foreign government like China?
Well, first of all, we've got the best farmers and ranchers in the world right here in America. If they have a level playing field, they can outcompete anyone in the world. But this is part of the larger issue that we're talking about here, which is we're in a Cold War with China. The Biden administration won't admit that. But we're also in an economic war through what we're doing with agriculture and energy. And we're also in a war with them relative to cyber war. We get attacked every day in North Dakota, every state, every school district, our tribes, all being attacked every day by either China, Russia, Iran, or North Korea. And now we've got a Biden administration.
Answer the question.
They're out there, creating the world, making it less safe. $6 billion they traded for 5 people. They've just now set a price on anyone's head who's a tourist from America, who's a student from America, for kidnapping. If you want more kidnapping, put a price on it. And then and they're also helping Iran get to have more close.
Do you want more kidnapping?
I don't think so.
That's
Probably
I'm sure a lot of people out there are like, more kidnapping.
More kidnapping.
Taiwan to China and think that's a foreign policy, that will make our nation less successful.
I just can't even
make us
follow
more
anything
poor,
this guy says. I have to admit, it's so incoherent.
He is a bit hard to follow. That is true.
Yeah, really hard to follow. Except that he loves North Dakota.
Well, he was the governor. That's all he really has to go off of, I guess.
I like North Dakota. I've been there.
Yeah, it's a great state.
Yeah.
Climate policy, which is making the world less stable, it's empowering dictators. It's not about climate change that we need worried about. It's about the Biden climate policies that are actually the existential threat to America's future.
Thank you.
Can I speak about
Oh, it's just let our planet burn up. I got it.
Mexico's president called
Drill.
who supports
Mine.
sending U.S.
Burn.
military into the country, quote, scoundrels. Mexico is the United States' most important trade partner and border security. You say you will send special operations to attack the cartels in Mexico. So, this means boots on the ground, drone strikes?
It means special operations. It's how we deal with our terrorists. And what you need to do is understand that Mexico's not being a good partner if we lost 75,000 Americans last year. Mexico's not being a good partner if they're letting the cartels get away with what they're getting away with. What we will do is we will make sure that we send in our special operations and we will take out the cartels, we'll take out their operations, we'll take out anything that's doing it. But we're going to go after China because China is the one sending the fentanyl in the first place. And we will end all normal trade relations until China stops sending fentanyl.
Oh,
and
bankrupt
then we'll
the
do the
country.
special operations and we'll get it from both sides. This is where
You know how
President
much
Trump...
your television and your iPhone is going to cost if we boycotted China?
A lot more.
A lot more. And of course, they're all talking about inflation. It's going to hurt us way more than China.
Cuba. They didn't focus enough on the fact that all of our law enforcement drones in America are Chinese, and we've got all these little surveillance cells. We need to
So let's
start
boycott
focusing
them
on...
so we can't build any more drones.
The whole China thing is a complicated web, and they seem to be making it very black and white.
Yeah, as if all we got to do is stand up to them in
Right.
some way or other, and we'll solve the problem.
You're all auditioning for the job as president of the United States. You want to earn these votes. But the world's problems land in the Oval Office. During the presidential debates in the year 2000, neither Al Gore nor George W. Bush was asked about al-Qaeda. Yet, just 1 year later, al-Qaeda's attack on September 11th claimed nearly 3,000 lives. And the farther we get from September 11th, the closer we are to September 10th. Senator Scott, you have no executive branch experience. What has prepared you to protect the nation from a major man-made national security crisis?
Well, one of the things I've had the good fortune of doing is serving on committees in the United States Senate, like the Senate Armed Services Committee. I'm on the Senate Foreign Relations Committee, also on the Finance Committee and the Banking Committee. Talk about addressing the issue of fentanyl. I've written the legislation, passed it through the Banking Committee and the Senate that would freeze the assets and sanction the accounts of the Mexican cartels. There are weapons that we have within the arsenal that I was
How are
able
you
to
going
get
to
past.
freeze their accounts when they're a cash business?
Good question.
I've also understood without question the fact that if you look at
Not like they just have all these open bank accounts that you can freeze that are in the United States.
That suggested an attack was coming. Having the right intelligence partners with us is key to making sure that we prevent the next 9/11 from ever happening. Having that experience for the last 10 years is really important in getting the job done.
30 seconds.
Got me there. I didn't hear a darn thing for a solution except a ridiculous idea of freezing the cartel bank accounts that don't exist in the United States.
This country's in a lot of trouble. And you hear the fire on the stage tonight. You hear the fire in all of our voices. And it's because Joe Biden has weakened this country at home and abroad. This is a time for those of us that have the experience, the tested experience, and a commitment to the conservative agenda that Ronald Reagan brought forward in this party of a strong national defense, standing with our allies, standing
More
up to
money
our
for
enemies,
defense, yes.
supporting limited government and traditional values, need to step forward.
Understood.
Because, frankly, our party does face a time for choosing, as I said at the top of this debate, whether we're going to stand on the foundation of that conservative agenda that Ronald Reagan poured, or whether we're going to follow the siren song of populism unmoored to conservative principles.
Populism, there's one we haven't heard yet.
That's true.
So is that a shot at Biden or a shot at Trump?
I think I shot at Vivek.
Oh, I think it's a shot at Trump, too. Certainly not a shot at Biden. Biden is no populist.
Right.
Do the same. We'll take that up when the debate continues.
All right. I'm staying, so
what are the
let's
questions,
have your questions.
people? Let's get them.
Keep those donations coming. We need them. We need them. We're persevering for 2.25 hours tonight.
Yeah, this is getting rough.
Yeah, but you're young. You know?
Yeah,
how about an old guy like me?
Yeah, I mean, I'm fine, but it's just like, yeah, I mean, it's just tiring to listen to this.
It's very
for so
tiring
long.
to listen to this.
Yeah. What do you guys think?
It has nothing to do with really, whether you're liberal or conservative. It has to do, I admired Ronald Reagan a lot. As I said, I wasn't for him politically, but I thought he was a great communicator. He had a message. It was clear. None of these people come close to being Ronald Reagan. And remember the famous debate with Dan Quayle and the Lloyd Benson, where Quayle said, I'm a young guy like JFK, and Benson responded, Kiko, I knew JFK. JFK was a friend of mine. You, sir, are no JFK. Well, you crew, you are no Ronald Reagan.
President Nieto asks, what's your favorite presidential history story?
My favorite presidential history story is how Franklin Roosevelt became president.
Sit up.
Through the greatest blunder in American political history. In 1928, Al Smith, the governor of New York, was the Democratic nominee. He was first Catholic for a major party, and he was worried about the anti-Catholic vote in upstate New York. And he wanted someone to run for governor who was a good Protestant with a big name. And who did he go to? Franklin Roosevelt. And Roosevelt said, no way I want to run. This is a bad year for Democrats. And Al Smith basically forced him to run. Al Smith got obliterated in the presidential election, lost the state of New York, and Franklin Roosevelt, in a huge upset, squeaked by, won the governorship, became the most important Democrat in the nation, supplanting Al Smith. And when the Great Depression hit and the Democrats had this great opportunity to win in 1932, it was not Al Smith they turned to, but Franklin Roosevelt, because of Al Smith's blunder.
That's a good one.
Yeah, and it's one almost nobody knows.
Which of your presidential predictions were you least sure about?
Maybe 2016.
I was going to say, he's going to say 2016.
That was a real tough one.
Yeah, and assuming...
But I doubled down on that. I did 2 interviews with the Washington Post, and, they tried to get me to waver, and I wouldn't.
Right. Let's see. Do you think Obama's policies are the main cause for China's emergence as an economic/military threat? I have no opinion. I just want to be enlightened.
I'm not sure I can enlighten you on that. I'm not an economic expert, but I'm sure the answer is no. China, is a closed internal society, and it would have risen to be an economic power no matter what.
Do you think Christie's campaign came crashing down tonight? It was already pretty.
Well, there's nowhere to crash from.
I was gonna say it's already pretty low.
When you're at 2% or 3%, there ain't much of a crash to have. He's going nowhere, obviously, and he knows it. That's why he's, the only one really willing and hard way to go after Trump. You saw DeSantis, in kind of a, backhanded, pussyfooting kind of way go after Trump, but he showed no courage in doing it.
Stevie wants to know, who do you think was the most leftist president we've ever... the debate is back. We'll get back to that after.
The most leftist president?
Yeah. Answer quickly.
Franklin Roosevelt.
There you go. Thanks, Stevie, for the question.
Welcome back to the Republican primary debate here at the Reagan Library. We've got a lot more issues to cover and a lot more questions to go. So,
by the way, Ronald Reagan was not the most right-wing president we've ever had.
Who was?
Calvin Coolidge, Warren Harding, and probably George W. Bush and Donald Trump were ahead of him.
Right.
But the courts won't let you. Mr. Ramaswamy, how would you bring down prices without immediate drilling?
Well, look, I think that we do have to run through the courts and get through that administrative state to make sure we're using the natural resources here at home. But here's the other thing that we can do that's easy.
Forever, Mr. Ramaswamy.
And it addresses the national debt as well as brings down prices. Put people back to work. We are using taxpayer money to pay people more to stay at home than to go to work.
What
that
nonsense.
is wrong. That contributes to our supply chain crisis. It contributes to inflation. That's the easiest way to unlock this economy. And here's the other thing. We have to put the Federal Reserve back in its place. This is an agency that has gone rogue. So in January 2026, when I have the opportunity as our next commander-in-chief, we will have a new chairman of the Federal Reserve who places priority on dollar stability, and then most importantly, send packing 75% of the administrative state, reduce the federal employee headcount by 75%, rescind 50% of unconstitutional federal regulations that are shackling businesses, both large and small. I've offered a very clear, practical plan to do it. That's how we unleash the economy. That's how we revive the integrity of a three-branch constitutional republic, rather than this technocracy and aristocracy in the administrative state.
I'm starting to blear on a lot of this, to be honest with you.
Me too. I think one of the signature accomplishments of our administration was in just a few short years, we achieved energy independence. We became a net exporter of energy for the first time in 75 years. But on day one, Joe Biden declared a war on energy, which was no surprise, because when Joe Biden
declared a war on
he said he was going to end
energy.
the fossil
Right, on pollution.
fuels, and they've been working overtime to do that.
Have you
ever
forgotten
since.
the hurricanes, the droughts, the wildfires, the tornadoes, the desertification, the melting of the glaciers?
And I have a plan that actually would not only reclaim energy independence, but in 2006, America lost our position as the leading energy producer on Earth. I believe in the next 10 years, with the right policies and experienced leadership in the White House, we can reclaim our role as the leading energy producer on Earth, and that'll grow the American economy for generations to come.
Destroy the planet. That's okay. It's a balance.
Reaction to that, please.
As the only person who's leading an energy state, could I answer the energy question?
No, Governor Haley.
Dang, she was like, no. Governor Haley.
The United Nations is energy security is national security. We need a president that understands we have to partner with our producers and make sure that we have their backs. What you don't need is a president who is against energy independence. Ron DeSantis is against fracking.
Why is renewable energy not part of energy dependence?
In fact, in the long run, it's the only way.
Right.
Because fossil fuels will run out. I don't know when, but they will eventually run out, whereas renewables are forever.
You didn't have to take.
Governor DeSantis, you were mentioned. You have the right to respond. 30 seconds.
Yeah. I just did a plan out in West Texas for American energy dominance. We're going to choose Midland over Moscow. We're going to choose the Marcellus over the Mullahs, and we're going to choose Bakken over Beijing.
That's great, but it can also be done through renewable energy.
Of course. That's the only way for the future.
Right.
The old smokestack approach is gone.
I don't understand how Republicans have hijacked this energy independence line. Why don't Democrats use that too? I don't get it.
Yeah, Democrats, that's a whole other story.
Right.
I've said this many times. Democrats are horrible at messaging.
only that, fracking wasn't. They didn't
talk
vote on
over each
fracking.
other now.
They voted it
Check
in.
it.
That's
Check
what we
it.
did. Onshore, we do it in Florida. We don't have as much as maybe West Texas, but we do it. But that was a constitutional. So that's just wrong. And let's just get real here. My plan will get the job done. We are going to be energy dominant, and that's what's going to happen.
And the voters didn't even vote on fracking. You banned fracking.
Moving
guess it
on
was
with this
drilled,
question for
big,
Governor DeSantis.
burned,
Governor, excuse me, we cannot talk over each other. We must respect each other's time. My apologies for that.
Everybody's saying that we wanted a debate, Dad.
Oh,
Thank you, guys. That's
thank
so
you.
nice of
And
you.
then, vote for us by, donations.
This guy loves his donations.
I love that. Look, I want to keep this going. And,
Right.
We're a shoestring.
Yeah, that is true.
Cost of college.
We're not Fox
the cost
News.
Of college itself.
No, we're not.
Because the
Fox
colleges
News
are going to
could
have to make a
pay
decision.
$787 million
Do we
and not
expand
blink.
the gender studies department? Knowing some of those graduates
$787
may not have
would
great,
be big
learning
for us.
opportunities. No, they're going to focus
That
on the
is
things
true.
that really matter. They're going to make different choices. They're going to try to graduate people in 4 years. I also just want to come back to something Dana asked last segment about 9/11, because I was just at the 9/11 memorial with the families. My wife and I were invited. It's very touching
another story.
to be there, and it affected my life because I ended up joining the military as a result of that.
Yeah, you know what he
I've
did
been
in
a
the
blue
military?
No.
JAG.
What's
He
that?
wasn't judge advocate. He was the lawyer.
Oh. I mean, look, he served. Whatever.
It's fair enough, but, not like he was on the front lines.
Right.
Coming back on the plane from Iraq, landing in Coronado, California, North Island, and feeling that breeze off the Pacific Ocean and say, you know what? I am lucky to have been born an American, and I think being able to
just doesn't
serve,
work.
and I'll be the first president
His
elected since
folksiness
1988
just
who's actually
doesn't
served
work.
overseas in
He's
a war.
not
I
folksy.
think that's going to help me as
not
commander-in-chief
Reagan.
to know how you see these issues and understand that there are real lives at stake for people that wear the uniform.
And we know that Governor Haley's husband is serving right now as well, and we thank him for that. Senator Scott, the national debt has nearly doubled in your time in office. The approval rate for Congress is at a mere 19%. If this were a business, you'd probably all be fired in Washington, but you're here tonight looking for a promotion. In 2013,
Dang. That was a good one.
That was
Get
a
him.
singer.
Okay, I like that.
That's the best singer of
That's
the night.
a good singer, yeah.
Better than any of those.
Certainly. One of the things I'd say is if you look at our national debt of $33 trillion, I would love to have an opportunity to have this country pass a balanced budget amendment. That would constrain the spending in Washington in the same fashion that it does
Yeah,
in
but then how are
every
you going
state.
to have all your big spending programs?
Good question.
And how are you going to cut taxes like you promised?
Talking to the mic.
How are you going to cut taxes? How are you going to fund mental health, the border, the military, education, whatever, all these big government, big spending programs, childcare?
If we unleashed all of our energy resources, America is we're the richest country if you combine coal, gas, and oil.
Oh, my
Why not
God.
unleash all of our resources? Number two, we've lost 100,000 factories. 100,000 factories.
Yes.
About face, run as fast as you can to the past. That's what they're all talking about, trying to restore the old fossil fuel economy that's killing the planet and is not sustainable in the long run.
And does anybody talk about the fact that a lot of these guys are in the pocket of these industries?
Of course they are.
Right, but I feel like that's not brought up enough. It's like they're so pro fracking and oil and fossil fuels because
they're getting all this money.
Yeah, they're all in the pockets of these guys.
Yeah, and they're attacking Big Pharma. It's another big source of their Republican money.
Yeah.
But he's been there
Yeah, who's
12
the
years
biggest
and he hasn't done it.
Republican donors, right? The brothers, right? One of them's
Koch
deceased.
brothers.
The Koch. And what are they in? The oil industry.
Make sure that the border
And you know who attended 2 Koch industry fundraisers? Clarence Thomas.
Oh.
And they are now having this big case before the Supreme Court in which Koch Industries has a huge stake because they're trying to gut regulations. The Chevron case.
The only one up here who's gotten in the big fights and has delivered big victories for the people of Florida. And that's what it's all about. You can always...
That was probably his best moment.
Yeah.
When they're shooting arrows at you, are you going to be stand up for parents' rights, to keep the state free? Are you going to be able to do all those things? And in the state of Florida, because of our success, the Democratic Party lies in ruins. We have won the big fights. We have turned our state into a Republican state. People respond to leadership. I've done it while others have talked
That
about
was
it.
his best moment.
That was his best moment.
Best moment.
Oh, but here's Vivek to say whatever.
Oh, yeah.
Just briefly interject here. We need a zero-based budgeting. That's the way businesses are actually run. Start with zero as the baseline for...
The U.S. government is not a business.
Yes.
It's way different than a business.
State in this union that does it. The federal government doesn't do it. But successful companies, including the ones that I've built as a CEO, will do it. And I think we need a CEO in the White House to get that done.
I'm so sick of this run the U.S. like a business. You cannot do that. It's not physically possible.
Who are the two successful supposed businessmen, the two men who went from business to the presidency? Herbert Hoover, who presided over the Great Depression, and Donald Trump, who's ranked as the worst president America has ever had by all the, authorities in the field.
The mass casualties in our state. And on the energy policy, we're already doing it. It's not saying when nobody else done the big fights, North Dakota was leading the charge. We won the battle to get the Biden administration, who was ignoring the law. They were the first administration since Truman that wasn't holding the quarterly required lease sales, and we won that in federal court. WOTUS, we won that in federal court. We're fighting the Biden administration on 20 fronts to say that nobody's fighting the big fights. Just look at the record of what we're doing right now. Energy, economy, national security have been talking about it since day one, and now finally, good, we're having the conversation about it.
Okay,
but
only
we got
15
the
more
answer
minutes.
Yay!
Thank God.
Let's talk big government. This question's for you. Big government keeps getting bigger. 1/5 of all new jobs this year have been created by the government. Governor Burgum, you say you want to shrink the size of government, but it has been a century.
Except for all these big government, big spending programs they want. You know what the biggest big government, big spending program is? A national abortion ban.
State budget, general fund by
Let's put
20.
the government in everyone's bedrooms.
And the
next biggest would be banning the children born in the U.S. of undocumented immigrants from being U.S. citizens. That would mean the government investigates every parent in America. But they're all for small government.
You make good points.
Employees. And by the way, we've got 10 million jobs open. They'd have plenty to do, and they could be generating taxes instead of being paid by taxes. This is totally possible to do it if you have somebody that understands, because having worked in technology for 30 years, everything we had to do was to be better, faster, and cheaper the next day. That's what we can do in government. That's what we're doing in North Dakota.
All right. Governor DeSantis, I want to ask you about something that I think is on a lot of Republicans' minds. This election could come down to less than 50,000 votes in 3 states. Abortion was on the ballot in 6 states in 2022. Republicans lost all of them. Next year, abortion will likely be on the ballot in Arizona.
He doesn't want to answer this one.
That is a
Look
must-win
at him.
state. Governor DeSantis, how are you going to win over independent, pro-choice voters in Arizona?
Same way we did in Florida. We won the greatest Republican victory in a governor's race in the history of the state, over 1.5 million votes.
It's not a
we
swing
were winning
state.
Places like Miami-Dade County, Palm Beach, that nobody thought was possible because we were leading with purpose and conviction. I reject this idea that pro-lifers are to blame for midterm defeats. I think there's other reasons for that. The former president, he's missing in action tonight. He's had a lot to say about that. He should be here explaining his comments to try to say that pro-life protections are somehow a terrible thing. I want him to look into the eyes and tell people who've been fighting this fight for a long time. My wife and I earlier today were at the gravesite of President and Mrs. Reagan, and I noticed that there was
needles
a quote
in my
where it
eyes.
says, every single person has purpose and worth. We're better off when everybody counts.
I never thought of that.
Never thought of that.
Never would have thought of that. Oh,
I think
what
we should
brilliance.
hold the Democrats accountable for their extremism, supporting abortion all the way up until the moment of birth. That is
that's such
infanticide,
nonsense.
and that is wrong.
Let me ask Governor
That's not even
Christie.
close to what Roe versus
Governor
Wade is.
Christie, do you think that Republicans...
Yes, I will.
Okay, Governor Christie, do you think that Republicans can do that in Arizona if this referendum is on the ballot there?
Yeah, because I did it in New Jersey, Dana. It's...
Then why are all these other states losing?
Listen to these guys. You would think they're the greatest leaders in their states in the history of the world.
Of course, they're politicians. They have to.
They have to say that. There's no one to contradict them.
Right.
No fact check there.
if we're going to win the White House back. And what we did was 14 times, Dana, in 8 years, I vetoed Planned Parenthood funding. 14 times. No one else gets it that much. The Democrats just kept sending it to me, and I kept saying no because I believe in life, but I also believe in states' rights. And I think we fought hard against Roe versus Wade for decades to say that states should make these decisions. So we're going to have those fights in the states. But what you need is a leader who can talk to people and make them understand that if you're pro-life, you have to be pro-life for the entire life, not just the 9 months in the womb. And we talked a lot about fentanyl.
I mean, that's a good point. I mean,
yeah,
that's what
it was Barney Frank, the Democratic former congressman, who said the anti-choice movement believes life begins at conception and ends at birth. So I guess what he's saying is we need to sustain life throughout, not just while the fetus is in the womb, because the red states that are banning abortion have the worst health care for mothers and infants.
Vice President Pence, the latest Univision poll found that 73% of Latino voters think the Republican Party doesn't care about or is being hostile toward them, the Hispanic community. Only Governor DeSantis has translated his campaign into Spanish. How will you reach out to Latino voters?
Well, I promise you that we're going to continue to build bridges to every community in this country. And I'm incredibly proud of that tax cut and tax reform bill. I worked on Capitol Hill to help get that bill passed into law, the largest tax cut in American history. We saw literally the lowest unemployment ever recorded for Hispanic Americans, the lowest unemployment ever recorded for African Americans, 50-year low for women. So I think the President of the United States needs to be a champion for the American dream for every American. It begins with the unborn and the aged and the infirm. And it begins with every ethnic group in this country. And I promise you, if I'm President of the United States, I'll be a champion. I'll be a champion for the American dream, for Hispanic Americans, and for every American. So help me God.
Senator Scott, reaction?
He's got God at his side.
There's no
What
doubt
do you want?
If you lead by example,
Doesn't have to have any
it's the
answers.
best way to get the job done. If you look at my office in the Senate, my chief of staff is the only Hispanic female chief of staff in the Senate.
Who cares?
I hired her because she was the best, highest qualified.
That matters.
We have. What we need are leaders who lead by example. And I will simply say, I would love to finish my conversation with Nikki as it relates to the job that needs to get done. Nikki offered a 10-cent gas tax increase in South Carolina. Talk about someone who has never seen a federal dollar she doesn't like. 10 cents on the gallon in South Carolina. As the UN ambassador,
lost me here.
You literally
Something Nikki Haley said an hour ago.
$50,000 on curtains in a $15 million subsidized location. Next.
You got bad information. First of all, I fought the gas tax in South Carolina multiple times against the establishment.
Just go to YouTube.
Against the establishment.
So we're going to cut all these taxes. We're going to have a balanced budget
when
amendment.
they wouldn't pass the gas tax, the establishment,
Makes
the companies
sense.
wanted me to do it so much that I said the only way I will.
I've been very nice to Ronald Reagan so far, right? Been very complimentary. But what Ronald Reagan said was, we can cut taxes, build the military, and balance the budget. And what happened during the Reagan years? The biggest deficits peacetime in the history of the country.
Because Obama bought those
So all this is nonsense.
It's in the press.
Did you send them back?
It's the State Department.
Did you send them back?
Did you send them back? You're the one that works in Congress.
Oh my gosh.
Does anyone want to see these two fighting?
They were there
Me.
before I even
You.
showed up at the
All right.
residence. You are scrapping.
Who's winning?
I'm not even listening. I have no idea what
I
they're
can't
saying.
listen.
No
I know.
idea
I
what they're
can't
saying.
even begin to listen to this.
I think this is almost over, though.
Thank goodness. Let's finish by talking over one another so no one can hear what you're saying.
To go ahead like this. In fact, we're about to take a commercial break. We'll have more of the second Republican debate live from the.
Come on, it's got to be over.
More commercial
It's
debates?
like 8 minutes to 11.
Jeez. All right.
All right. I'm happy to take people's questions. I don't see the donations coming in, though. That's disappointing.
You're mad?
No, I never get mad at my audience.
Right. I'm getting bleary-eyed for sure at this point.
I'm really bleary. Hey, I'm 45 years older than you.
Right.
So you have no excuse. Do we have any questions?
Let's see. Any questions, folks? What would you consider George H.W. Wouldn't you consider George H.W. Bush a successful businessman turned president? He was in the oil business.
Yeah, but he was really a politician, long after he was in the oil business. He served in Congress. He was in administrations. He was chairman of the Republican National Committee. Trump, Hoover was never elected to anything, but he did serve in government. So, and H.W. was an okay president. He was very good on foreign policy. I give him an A, but he was not much good on domestic policy. And that was one of the keys that was against him, critical sixth key that led me to predict his defeat.
They said you don't look 45 years older 45 years older than me.
Well, I'm glad to hear that.
I'm
Clean
sure,
living.
Yes.
I don't know about that, but
well,
I'm going to give everyone a piece of advice. I've given them this before. The key to a successful old age is regular aerobic exercise. Doesn't matter what it is. Could be tennis, pickleball, walking, going to the gym, anything. Just showing up is 80%, and that's all you need. You don't need the other 20%. That's, if you want to be a competitive athlete.
Stevie with a donation of $5.
Awesome.
Thank you so much. They ask, who was a better overall president, Bill Clinton or Ronald Reagan?
They're so different. It's so hard to judge. In terms of making their mark on the country, I'd have to say Ronald Reagan. In terms of my own political preferences, which, take it for what it's worth, doesn't matter, I'd pick Bill Clinton. But in terms of making his mark on the country and the world, Ronald Reagan stands above. And that's coming from, a progressive. I call it as I see them. My political views do not affect my political analysis at all. That's why I was able to predict Donald Trump's win in 2016, which hardly made me popular in Washington, D.C. That's over 90% Democratic, where I teach at American University.
I've heard that before.
That's all right. I can't reiterate that too many times. It's a really important lesson. You've got to separate your political views from your scholarship and your analysis.
Here's an interesting question. Would you consider running for Senate again?
I have a really simple answer to that, and I'll give you a 3-part answer. No, no, and no.
There you go. Who's your favorite president, Dad?
Probably Roosevelt, Franklin Roosevelt.
Right. Let's see here.
Franklin Roosevelt is really the only president who led us through the worst depression in the history of the country and the biggest war in the history of the country. That's pretty incredible.
Yeah. Guys, ask some questions. Put some questions in the chat while we're during a commercial.
Yeah, I guess they must be going to final.
Yeah, they have to be going to.
Because it's 10:56.
Yeah. James Buchanan on paper had all the qualifications to be president. Why did he show up to the White House and decide to sit on his hands and watch everything burn?
Who are we talking about?
James Buchanan.
James Buchanan was pro-Southern, was very sympathetic to the South, and probably was happy. I can't say that for sure, to see the South break away. He is ranked right in the very bottom of American presidents.
Who's the best president of your lifetime?
Oh.
Debate's coming back.
It's a really hard question. Probably Barack Obama.
Wow.
But it's a close call. It would have been Lyndon Johnson, but, had you enjoyed the play, Mrs. Lincoln, but for the Vietnam War, Lyndon Johnson did far more than any other president in a positive way, including the Voting Rights Act, the Civil Rights Act, Medicaid, Medicare.
Please use your marker to write your choice on the notepad in front of you.
Writing.
15 seconds.
If we had a
Wait,
balance...
hold on. They're writing down who should be voted off the island? So I guess who should step away?
Huh? Who's voting?
The people on the stage. That's a bad question.
That's a terrible question.
They've obviously said they're not doing it.
Yeah, of course not. Why would they do that?
Let me ask you
I was going to
something.
say, they're all talking about a balanced
question,
budget
let me ask you
amendment.
this one.
Yeah.
What
All
is
talking
your
about a balanced budget
mathematical
amendment.
path?
If we had that during the Reagan administration, none of Reagan's policies could have gone into effect because they promoted huge deficits.
Polls don't elect presidents. Voters elect presidents.
Right.
And we're going to take the case of the people in these early states. We're going to do it in a state-by-state direction. And why? Because as Reagan said in his day, this is our time for choosing. We are not
We just
getting a
heard that
mulligan on
same
the
quote.
2024
Come on,
election.
come with something
Republicans
new.
have lost 3 straight elections in a row. We were supposed to have a red wave with inflation at 9%. It crashed and burned. Not in Florida, it didn't. We delivered it in Florida. And so we've
right,
got
we've
to
heard that
choose,
already.
right? We've got to
Florida's,
win. And we need
you know,
somebody that's
the
going to be able to serve 2 terms.
Nirvana.
So in January of 2023, they'll be able to address the nation saying, we turned the economy around, we secured the border, and we fended off the threat from communist China. As your president, I will get that job done.
Governor Christie, I believe I did see you
You're going
write
to end the
something-
threat from
Governor
China and
Christie,
secure the
I believe-
border.
Excuse me. Governor
And
Christie,
balance the budget.
write something on the card. Who
No.
was it?
No, but I'll certainly tell you.
Go.
Okay.
Yeah. Look, I think I've been the only one on this stage who's been clear about this. I vote Donald Trump off the island right now.
Wow, that's a good
Wow.
The
answer.
reason I voted
All right,
off the
that might be the
island-
line of the night.
Yeah.
The people on the
because you know
stage
what?
off the hand.
Every
It's the only
person
one I'll
on this
remember.
stage has shown the respect for Republican voters to come here to express their views honestly, candidly, and directly, and to take your questions honestly. I have
Look, he
respect
knows
for
he
every-
has no chance, so why not?
Yeah, why not?
Why not let it loose?
Yeah.
I still got time, dude. So chill out. Look, this guy has not only divided our party, he's divided families all over this country. He's divided friends all over this country. I've spoken to people, and I know everyone else has, who have sat at Thanksgiving dinner or at a birthday party and can't have a conversation anymore if they
Governor,
disagree
He's
with
right.
Donald Trump.
Governor,
He needs to be
and
voted
that.
off the island, and he needs to be taken out of this
Can we give
process.
Vivek 15 seconds?
All right, you got 15 seconds, Vivek.
Look, I have a different view on this. I think Trump was an excellent president. But the America First agenda does not belong to one man. It does not belong to Donald Trump. It doesn't belong to me. It belongs to you, the people of this country. And the question is, who's going to unite this country and take the America
Yes.
First agenda to the next level? When
You know,
we rally
I don't know
behind the cry
which
to
is
make-
ahead. You know, the number of horrors, you know, Biden, Soros, the invasion, or the number of cliches. Which you think is ahead?
If he thinks Trump was such a great president, why is he running against him?
That's a very good question, yeah.
For that does it. I repeat, that does it.
It's over.
It's over.
It's over.
No closing statements.
Presidential Library.
Thank you to all the candidates. We've loved having you here tonight, and we will see you out.
All right, we'll stay on if people have burning
All right,
questions.
if you guys
for a
have
couple
burning
minutes.
questions, we'll stay on.
We're
for a couple
fading a
minutes.
bit.
This is
This young punk is fading more than I am.
I know. Why Obama? People want to know why you said Obama is the best president of your lifetime.
Well, because his policies, I think, really saved the country. Remember, he came in during an economic collapse, a financial collapse, and it was really Obama who brought the country out of that. It was a slow recovery, but we could have slid into another Great Depression. I also think the Affordable Care Act is one of the landmark achievements, I think the landmark achievement of the 21st century. And of course, you know, you can dismiss it, but the dispatch of bin Laden was an extraordinary feat on the part of the Obama administration, and it didn't get us embroiled in new wars.
I'm not sure if I totally understand this question, but I'll throw it to you. Since you predicted Trump would win in 2016 by using the keys, what do you think of Trump's relationship to Russia and Putin?
I think it's awful. I think Trump is an appeaser
What do
and
they have
always
to do
has
with
been
each
an
other?
appeaser. And that has nothing to do with my prediction, but that's, you know, my opinion on that issue. And it's not a random opinion. It's a very well-informed opinion. Look, when Trump was first impeached, everyone remembers he pressured Zelensky, the newly elected president of Ukraine, to investigate Biden. That wasn't the most important thing he asked Zelensky to do. Everyone forgets what he asked Zelensky to do was support the Russian intelligence propaganda line that it was Ukraine, not Russia, that intervened in the 2016 election. And he's been soft on Putin and soft on Russia throughout.
Is JFK overrated?
Oh, it's so hard to say because it was such an unfinished presidency. So I really can't call him over or underrated.
If the Republicans cause a shutdown and it causes a recession somehow, would it affect either of the economic keys against
Absolutely.
Biden?
It certainly would affect the short-term economic key and could affect the long-term economic key as well. I wonder if the Republicans are smart enough to understand the effect on the keys.
I mean, I think they certainly know that it won't be good for Biden. I don't know if they know the effects of the keys, but who is the most moderate president in your opinion, Dad?
George H.W. was a pretty moderate president. Jimmy Carter was a pretty moderate president in our time.
Why did everybody say Jimmy Carter is like this lefty president if he was moderate?
He was very moderate. He wasn't a big lefty president. It was, he wasn't proposing big social spending programs, like Lyndon Johnson had, before him. Or even Richard Nixon had.
Donation from Theo Meal. Thank you, Theo.
Right.
Do you ever get tired about people asking you about the keys? That's an interesting question, actually.
Never. I never get tired of people's questions, no matter what they are.
Another donation from President Nieto, one of our many presidents in the chat.
One of our many presidents.
Up, President Nieto? If you could meet one president, who would it be? What would your top question be for them?
It would be Abraham Lincoln, and my top question would be, when did you come to the realization that you had to end slavery and not just save the Union, and why?
That's a really good question. That's quite a good question.
All right, one more question.
All right, one more question.
I'm fading. We've been on this for over
2 hours
2 and a quarter
and 16
hours.
minutes, yeah. Come on, one more question, guys. We've talked about Afghanistan before.
I don't want to talk about Afghanistan.
No, I'm just saying. I'm just telling the viewers.
We've pounded that into the dust. All right, if there are no questions, we can...
Well, let's give it a second.
All right.
There's a little bit of a delay, so let's give it a second. So someone asked, how long before Election Day do you make your final prediction? It depends. We've talked about this before.
Yeah, you never know when the keys will fall in place. Sometimes years ahead of time, sometimes just a few months before the election.
Yeah, exactly.
I can't give you an answer. I'm asked that all the time.
Here's an interesting one. Which president was hated in their time, but history judges them better?
Harry Truman. Harry Truman was reviled in his time. Every Time magazine did a survey in 1948 when he was up for election in his own right of 40 leading pundits. And you know how many predicted he would win?
How many?
0. And his approval rating even plummeted after that when we got involved forever in Korea. But over time, his reputation substantially increased, as did Eisenhower's reputation increased.
We got a $20 super chat from Mr. Cheese. Thank you so much. They said, promise you I'd ask a good question. I've tried to find a similar figure to Trump. The closest I feel is Williams Jennings Bryan. Strong rural evangelical base, 3-time loser, obviously didn't attempt a coup. Thoughts?
No, did not attempt a coup, respected our democracy, and was a left-winger, not a right-winger like Donald Trump. But like Donald Trump, he had a certain appeal. He was a populist, and unlike Donald Trump, he was very important in moving the Democratic Party away from the Grover Cleveland Democratic Party, which was limited government, states' rights, hard money, into the Democratic Party of Woodrow Wilson and Franklin Roosevelt.
All right, with our dog barking in the background. Someone wants to know what your favorite food is. What's your favorite food?
Oh, my gosh.
I don't think I even know the answer to this, actually.
I'm not sure I do have. Your mother's chili.
That's not true.
It's true.
No, come on.
Your mother makes great chili.
It is good. But that's your favorite food?
Sure.
Okay.
Maybe lobster.
Okay, lobster. All right. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. This has been a long live.
It's been
obviously.
amazing. So we're not doing tomorrow.
We're not doing tomorrow.
Next week.
Tell us, did you guys like this? Do you want us to do this more often when there are debates or stuff like that? If you didn't like it, we won't do it again, obviously. But tell us if you liked it. There are 130 people in the chat right now. Only 79 likes. So if you're here, please give us a like. It really helps. Shout out to my friend. My name is Ben, Barry Smith, Ziggy Stardog, Stevie, Mr. Cheese, Eris, Patrick Murray. Thank you all for tuning in. We love you guys.
We do.